I can remember we were horseplaying around. Then we heard the first scream.
For centuries, the legends have lingered. A giant in the trees, a shadow just beyond the firelight, a scream that echoes through the pines and leaves no tracks. We've laughed at it, we've dismissed it, but every so often, someone sees it. Not a blurry figure in the fog, but something undeniable, towering, breathing, watching. This film is not about fantasy, it's about patterns. People thousands of miles apart. Different towns, different lives, all describing the same impossible thing. Tonight we'll follow the stories they never meant to tell, the recordings they can't explain. This is more than a documentary. This is a map of the moments we weren't supposed to see. And when you trace those moments, you find one truth waiting in the shadows. It's not just real, it's here.
Came into view when it got in front of that picture window. And it was on 2 feet.
The Finding Bigfoot team had an interesting question. Which ancient wilderness held more Sasquatch activity? Washington's Olympic Peninsula or British Columbia? Bobo and Rane, forming the U.S. team, dived into the Olympic Peninsula, a region famous for the very legends they were looking for, even giving rise to the name Sasquatch itself. As seasoned researchers, they moved with regard through these tribal lands.
Can't even see my hand in front of my face.
Out here on the Olympic Peninsula, there is a rich history of reports, and there's no other place where I've spent more time in the woods than right here. So it would be very fitting if this is the place where I find a Bigfoot tonight. Plus, we have Monkey on our team. This wager is in the bag.
This intense darkness multiplied every sound, every distant rustle, sharpening their senses and preparing them for the unknown. Their initial search involved looking for animal tracks, quickly finding bear scat, a small reassurance of ordinary life. But as night fell, a different reality set in. The darkness on the Olympic Peninsula was not to be messed with, a thick, tangible blackness that Ranai described as the most absolute she had ever experienced, making it impossible to see her hand in front of her face. Despite the creepy quiet, Bobo felt a strong vibe that this was the night. Then, the forest whispered its first terrifying secret. Ranai heard a subtle movement in the brush, followed by a clear, sharp wood knock.
I mean, it says I heard something further back make a noise.
Yeah, bigger, right?
Like a vocal kind of noise. Like, there's something in there. Right there. Listen.
Bobo, do you hear that?
It was an unmistakable sound, a slow, calculated way of communication. Both instantly snapped to high alert, the playful quiet replaced by a tense expectation. They decided to respond with their own knocks and calls, pushing deeper, excited to explore the possibilities. Just as their intense efforts continued, the night's creepy silence was shattered by something far more unsettling than a Sasquatch. A loud generator roared to life directly below them, followed almost immediately by a powerful hunting spotlight that swept through the trees, eventually locking onto their exact position.
I'm thinking my throat's kind of throsh. You want to do a duet whoop?
Okay.
All right, I'm ready.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. Echo.
Let's do one more.
1, 2, 3.
Oh,
This was your lice. Is that
let's get out of here. He's gonna come up here. He's right there.
Bobo's mind directly went to the idea of hearing gunshots. The very real threat of human danger replaced the thrill of the hunt. Recognizing the situation, they made the sensible decision of going back, their Bigfoot search overpowered by the urgent need for safety. Their night on the Olympic Peninsula, though not very fruitful in a direct Sasquatch sighting, left them with a chilling and unforgettable encounter that proved the wilderness held its own terrifying, unexpected dangers. It is the summer of 1972 in the distant Wind River Mountains of Wyoming, a place where silence hangs like mist and loneliness isn't a concept, it's reality. Naturalist John Masinski was living alone deep in these woods, working on a wildlife study for the U.S. Forest Service. He expected deers, mountain lions, and unpredictable weather. What he didn't expect was something, or someone, pressing against the thin nylon wall of his tent in the dead of night.
Approached by something that cast a shadow. The moon was just coming up, was almost a full moon. I clearly saw a hand with 4 fingers and an opposed thumb, like a human hand, and it was large. It was twice the size of my hand. It was getting aggressive with its movements on the side of the tent. I hit it with the back of my hand.
Masinski recalls the moment he felt his tent being disturbed. At first, he thought it was a curious bear, but the full moon revealed something that made his blood run cold. A massive hand. It had 4 fingers and an opposable thumb, which was very human, yet at least double the size of his own. As it moved angrily along the tent wall, he jumped back in panic. The creature fled into the trees, leaving him stunned and shaken, struggling to explain what he'd seen. Still trying to make sense of the encounter, John reported the incident to his superiors. To his surprise, he wasn't alone. Many similar reports had emerged across the region.
I eventually interviewed about 25 people. The most interesting one was a young man in a little cabin up against the mountains. He had reported seeing one of these behaving aggressively in front of his cabin.
John shares the most disturbing account he came across of a young man living in an isolated cabin who had claimed to shoot a creature matching the same description. It fell, but moments later it stood up and ran into the wilderness, wounded, but very much alive. John was sent to investigate and collect evidence. What he found shocked even the scientists. At the cabin, he discovered a clump of coarse hair stuck to the building's siding, and unlike anything local wildlife should have. He submitted the sample to a well-known forensic anthropologist, Walter Burby, who, after analysis, gave an eerie conclusion. The hair came from a primate. But there are no primates in Wyoming.
A few days later, and Walter Burby said, and this is a quote, "This is my first stumper. These hairs are primate," and he was certain about that. The result was controversial because the hairy primate is not of an animal native to Wyoming. That kind of suggested the idea of Bigfoot.
The confirmation was both a new exploration and dangerous. Rather than sparking interest, it triggered suppression. John recalls being warned by his department head to never associate his name with the word Bigfoot again because of the threat of being fired. This encounter, the shadow, the hand, the hairs, may not give the clearest image of a Sasquatch, but it does show us a chilling picture. Something huge, intelligent, and possibly a primate lives or lurks in the American wilderness. And it's not just watching us. Sometimes it walks right up to the door. Deep in the haunted forests near Mahone Bay, a group of friends dives into a place known only because of whispers and warnings where stories of strange sounds, shadowy figures, and unsettling encounters blend myth with something far more real. Their goal? A remote, decaying cabin, long rumored to be a hotspot for Bigfoot activity.
Oh, bro!
What?
Look at the cabin!
What's up with the cabin?
Bro, there's an X at the cabin.
What the fuck?
Bigfoots are known to make X's, apparently.
The tension begins almost immediately. As they close in on the abandoned cabin, marked ominously with an X, one of them hears what sounds like a woman's laugh echoing through the trees, faint, creepy, and out of place.
Yo, that wouldn't have been a human, would it?
I don't think so.
There's no way.
The forest feels heavy and charged with energy. Then it changes. A low, guttural growl replaces the laughter, sending the group into a silent panic. "That has to be a Sasquatch," one whispers. It's not just nerves. They've heard stories from locals about this very place. This seems like an affirmation to all the stories. The hike up is stressful. The ground is rough, steep, and overgrown. They cross what used to be a bridge, but only now it looks like something, or someone, rebuilt it using massive logs. They suggest that it does not look like the work of a human staring at the strange structure. But it's when they reach the cabin that everything shifts.
What happened?
I don't know, something like big moved in the bush.
Something big?
Like fell, or it almost sounded like something like moved really quick, like through the bush.
A sudden crash in the bushes freezes them. "Something big moved," one says, his voice filled with a sort of tightness. They stare into the trees, trying to see the source, but the forest has gone unnaturally silent. Whatever is out there, it's massive, fast, and hiding. As one of them jokes that they might be in the creature's territory, no one laughs. The closer they get to the cabin, the stronger the feeling becomes. They are being watched. Inside the broken-down structure, the air feels wrong. And then the cabin itself groans and shifts, as if something or someone moved within it.
I wasn't even recording that, but like...
Do you know any like haunted history behind this place?
Nothing.
Nothing?
No.
Just that it's a potential Bigfoot spot.
Yeah.
That was definitely something, unless the place is...
A loud metallic sound echoes from the darkened corner of the cabin. It's sudden and powerful, not the sound of wood falling or collapsing, but of something large colliding with metal. They search for their flashlights, calling out, expecting a person, an animal, anything, but there's nothing there. One of them, visibly shaken, says he felt a punch in the back, twice, with no one near him. The fear settles into their bones. This isn't some haunted house prank. Something physical is out there. Later that night, as they sit by the fire under their made-up shelter, the woods return to their normal self. Ticks, distant howls, and soft movement in the brush surround them.
I guess that's the kind of the one positive of living in Ontario, is that there's never fire bans.
Really?
I've never seen fire bans in Ontario. It's just like, I'm sure it happens sometimes, but it's rarely a thing.
Yeah.
Some of it could be animals, but some of it couldn't. The laughter comes again, farther away this time, but unmistakable. They speak of Bigfoot as interdimensional, of spiritual energy tied to creatures that can disappear without a trace. It sounds like late-night ranting until another crash from the trees makes them go silent. It's not coyotes, they're not raccoons. It's something bigger, something intelligent, and it's still watching them from the shadows. They made it to the cabin. They set up camp. But they'll leave with more than footage and memories. They'll leave with the uneasy knowledge that somewhere out there, they moved with them. The latest adventure from Sasquatch Theory took viewers directly into the heart of the mystery, starting with compelling footage captured from a gifting basket. Something furry and clearly wary of the camera reached in, taking off with bread, apples, and cookies, while oddly leaving the bananas untouched, which gives us a bit of understanding of the creature.
But the idea is, when he comes up here, he's gonna look into the gift basket, and hopefully the camera will capture something. I really doubt it, but it's worth a shot, just because we can't sit back and not do anything and say, well, they're gonna know what we're gonna do. Because if that was the case, people wouldn't have eye sightings, people wouldn't catch these things screwing up.
This footage set the stage for the host's deeply personal journey, camping alone in the very area where he'd had past Bigfoot encounters. This wasn't for entertainment, but a years-in-the-making mental challenge, driven by a desire to truly understand these curious beings and share his raw experiences. His mission was to provide a rare, raw look into their world, observing how Sasquatch operated near human activity and moving beyond speculation to seek direct answers. He had been gifting in the area for weeks.
All right, so I got the night vision on, and this is what it looks like without the IR flashlight. I don't want to aim it towards the fire because you don't want to aim an IR device into a bright light. There's my camp. Oh, there's a whippoorwill going off. Very cool.
Leaving offerings, and had noticed a surge in activity, including strange tree structures with triangles, arches, and woven saplings, which he understood as actual signs of their presence and even a form of communication. Setting up his hammock and tarp at the edge of the woodline, he explained why he chose this spot. Rather than diving into the deepest wilderness, he camped closer to civilization, believing these smart creatures, much like deer, would circle and observe before revealing themselves.
They'll let me know it, but at the same time, how do you know if something's a threat or if it's just them being Sasquatch? We don't. We just kind of take the risk.
As darkness fully encompassed the area, the sounds of the forest intensified with the chirping of crickets, the calls of distant coyotes and owls. Yet, an unexpected tension lay in these familiar sounds. This was a known Sasquatch area for him, a place where he'd personally seen them before, and being here alone at night for the first time since those encounters was a very huge step.
I'm not gonna lie, all the sounds of the forest is pretty intimidating, but I'm close to home, so I'm not that worried about it. But this is a Sasquatch area, and I know that for sure because I'd seen them like I told you guys, but it's nerving being in here, being in an area where you know you've seen Sasquatch.
He acknowledged the great risks, but spoke very peacefully, trusting that if they truly didn't want him there, they would certainly make their displeasure known. He relied on the subtle signs he'd learned to recognize. Faint sounds of stick breaks, sounds that seemed like small birds or squirrels, but with no visible animal, indicating a cautious, intelligent creature merging smartly into the wild. As the night went on, activity around his campsite became more clear. He started hearing a subtle movement and distinct stick breaks, not just near his camp, but especially around the tree structures he had identified along the trail and around the gifting site.
Over where I showed you guys the structure, right down the trail, I'm hearing more stick breaks. And straight out in front of me, past the gifting site and the other structures, I'm hearing some stick breaks and movement. But I can't figure out what it is for sure.
He noted the local blue jays fussing, a common wilderness sign that animals were on the move, and suspected they were indirectly alerting the Sasquatch to his exact position. Earlier, he had even seen a black, upright shadow move through a nearby power line strip, followed by deer and coyotes, leaving him with a disturbing sense of being observed, perhaps even surrounded. Despite the creepy atmosphere and the weird feeling of being watched, he remained strong in his commitment, hoping his new gear would finally capture the definitive evidence he looked for. His determination to his goal was to document the reality of Bigfoot, even if it required to have deeply unsettling experiences alone in the dark. Deep in the Northumbrian border country, something strange is happening. Sticks, snapped trees, unusual formations, stacked in ways nature can't easily explain. These aren't just fallen branches. They lean, they wedge, they point. It's like they've been placed. Take a look at this.
They all seem to come at the one point, don't they? Or roughly the same point. How they all seem to wedge more or less in the same place.
A tight cluster of angled sticks, all broken toward a center point. Different trees, different directions, but all aiming at the same spot. Could this be a shelter? It's not random. The alignment feels deliberate, almost like someone or something built it. Further along the trail, More of these break formations start to appear. Some old, weathered, snapped long ago. Others look fresh. It's quiet here. Too quiet. Every step feels like walking into a story already in progress. This footage says it all.
A little bit more of the debris. You've got the definite, heel area, which is quite low down. In this area here, it seems to...
On the forest floor, a large impression stands out. A clear trackway cutting through the undergrowth. There's a heel mark, wide and deep. It's not just a soft patch in the dirt. It's shaped. There's weight behind it, like something big crossed here. The trail keeps revealing more. Snapped limbs, heavy breaks, tall tree limbs cracked at impossible heights. Some of them way above human reach. A 9-foot break here, another one even higher. Could the wind do this? Could people? The higher you look, the stranger it gets. Watch this clip closely.
Another 2 or 3 foot above me. No, I would say it was at least 9 foot. You've got break there, another one there.
Branches snapped and dangling, scattered like a breadcrumb trail through the woods. There's no saw marks, no sign of human work, just raw, torn wood. Multiple breaks across different types of trees. Conifers, birches, some snapped low, some snapped near the top. The deeper the search goes, the more signs appear. 2 trees, bent unnaturally, arched over each other with nothing pinning them down. Another snapped branch carefully laid across them. It's like a marker, or a warning. Here's the moment it happened.
I mean, look at that, man. You've even got like a small tree there, which is dead. But you've also got this other branch which has been snapped over.
More breaks, more toppled trees wedged in strange ways. In one spot, at least 10 breaks can be seen at once, all within a small area. Stacked, leaning, balanced, almost as if someone arranged them. It doesn't look accidental.
I mean, what could have caused those 2 trees to bend in an arc all the way around to there?
Even more curious, one branch hangs in midair, out of place, no clear tree it came from. Could it have been dragged, slide into place? It doesn't match anything nearby. It feels placed. Take a look at this.
In this channel here, this ditch, and what looks like a break. It's a branch stuck in the ground, but it's been snapped off at the top.
In the middle of a ditch, a snapped branch is jammed into the ground, standing upright. There's fresh signs of animal tracks nearby, and the area is clearly rich with food. A fox even makes an appearance, running the trail, pausing to check if it's being followed. This isn't just about tree breaks. It's about patterns. It's about the question no one can answer. Who or what is moving through these forests, leaving signs behind?
I think it was snapped somewhere else and just hanging 12 foot up.
Could this be the work of the elusive wild man, the one local legends have whispered about for centuries? The deeper you look, the more the forest speaks. Snaps, bends, tracks, and maybe, just maybe, it's not all in the imagination. What do you think? Coincidence? Or is something out there shaping the woods in its own way? Let's take you deep into the heart of Canada's Yukon Territory, a vast and untamed wilderness stretching nearly 500,000 square kilometers. Here, the land is ruled not by skyscrapers or traffic, but by ancient forests, snow-dusted mountains, and silence. The few highways that run through this territory are surrounded by sheer isolation. It's a place where nature dominates, and where something else might still be watching. In the Yukon, outdoor life isn't just a hobby, it's a way of being. The people here, Yukoners, grow up wandering the woods, respecting the land, and navigating solitude. But among some locals, especially those who've spent decades in the backcountry, stories begin to surface. Stories not of wolves or bears, but of something far more mysterious. They call it Sasquatch, Bigfoot's northern cousin. On July 12, 2011, a Yukon man named Ed Trish had an encounter that he still can't explain. A seasoned outdoorsman, Ed knows the forest better than most. He knows how animals move. He knows the pace of human footsteps. So when he saw a tall, dark figure walking strangely along the tree line that day, something felt wrong. Ed described the movement as unlike a man's gait, too smooth, too heavy, too deliberate.
Man walks like this, right? He walked like this. And he kept a good pace, you know.
His curiosity kicked in. He drove a little closer and watched. But just as suddenly as it appeared, the figure was gone. No trace, no sound, just trees. He didn't tell friends. He didn't go public.
And I drove up, right up front, and I said, I'll wait till he comes around the telephone pole. And he was gone. I was, just sort of looking. I said, what's going on? Never saw him again. Disappeared right there.
He only shared the story with his daughter, Rhonda, who, to her credit, believed him. Years later, as stories like Ed's gained momentum, experts began to take interest. One of them was Red Grossinger, a Canadian military veteran turned researcher. Since 2003, Red has dedicated his life to investigating Sasquatch sightings across Canada. He even published a book, the Sasquatch Research Manual, where he outlines methods, field strategies, and dozens of case studies.
People have told me stories. So since 2003, I've been really digging into the history of Sasquatch.
Red confirmed that the Yukon has a long and credible history of sightings. Locals report large figures moving through brush.
A big, something bigger than a wolf or a dog, or it was like nothing I'd ever heard in my life before.
Others describe haunting vocalizations, long, echoing howls in the dead of night. Some accounts match Trish's exactly, a brief glimpse of something tall and humanoid. So the question remains, what are these people seeing? Skeptics argue it could be misidentified bears or shadows playing tricks on the eyes. But those who've seen it, who've felt the air shift and the silence deepen, aren't so sure. They speak not with hysteria but with calm certainty. They know what a bear looks like, and they know what they saw wasn't one. The Yukon is massive, wild, and largely uncharted. If a creature like Sasquatch were to exist anywhere, this would be the place. And perhaps it already does, quietly slipping between the trees, seen only by those lucky or unlucky enough to catch a glimpse.
Hello, Steve. My name is James B. Myself and a good buddy watch your channel on YouTube and just listen to your stories pretty frequently, actually. It's what we do. It's what we put on before we go on a trip or a hunt. It gets us in the mindset.
James B. and his friend, seasoned outdoorsman, held a deep regard for the wilderness and a quiet belief in Sasquatch. They weren't seeking any type of interaction. Their approach was one of reverence. They left apples as offerings at their camp spots, a gesture of respect taught by James's indigenous friend, acknowledging if there was anyone watching and being thankful for passage through the woods. 4 weeks before, they set up camp on the southeast side of Comox Lake, Vancouver Island, a spot they knew well. As James set up the tent, his friend playfully skipped rocks across the frozen lake, creating a different, echoing sound. The day passed peacefully with gathering firewood, cooking, and soaking in the beautiful view. But as darkness fully enveloped them, and they sat by the peaceful glow of their campfire, the silence abruptly shattered.
After just be sitting mesmerized by the glow of the fire, we started hearing many loud whoops and howls. We both know the sounds of elk and wolves and all the lives around us. This was not only deep, but crossed with the sound of a vocal cord. It came from 3 points around us, varying from about 100 meters away to what sounded like 2 or 3 kilometers away in a triangular form of communication. The whoops grew in loudness and echoed down the mountain and over the small lake we were camping at.
Loud guttural whoops and howls erupted around them. These were not any familiar sounds of elk or wolves. They were deep and clearly vocal. The sounds came from 3 different points, varying in distance from 100 meters to several kilometers, forming a triangle of communication around them. The intensity of these calls grew, echoing down the mountain and across the small lake. Already creeped out, they decided to try and sleep. Then, the true terror began. A rock was thrown onto the ice, directly mimicking the sound James's friend had made earlier that day. The difference was very visible. They were both now inside their tent. It was pitch black, and this sound was at least 10 times louder, a deliberate, powerful echo of their earlier actions.
Already by this point, we heard a rock thrown onto the ice, recreating the sound my buddy was making earlier in the day. The only difference now is we were both in the tent and it was dark and it was about 10 times louder. My buddy and I stayed up throughout the rest of the night. The vocal sounds would change in pitch, volume, and distance, sometimes 30 meters from the tent.
They remained awake for the rest of the night, as the vocalizations continued, changing in pitch, volume, and alarming proximity that sometimes as close as 30 meters from their tent. Long, curious hoots pierced the darkness, limiting their understanding of the forest. To this day, they admit they still haven't fully processed what passed that night. The next morning, their original plans to explore deeper into the mountains were swiftly abandoned. They packed up camp, eager to leave. As they finalized their preparations, James's friend, feeling a sense of safety because of the daylight, let out a loud bellow, attempting to mimic the sounds from the night. Their mistake was immediate and terrifying. About a kilometer away, a thunderous, shaking response came right back.
The next morning, instead of going further into the mountains as planned, we packed up camp. We were about to leave down the mountain. As we were packing up, my buddy let out a bellow, trying to recreate the sounds we heard earlier in the night. Feeling safe around the light of day, we were highly mistaken. About a kilometer away came a loud shaking response. There is no way to recreate this sound. It shakes the rock under your feet. After that, we sped up, cleaned up, left our apples, and left the mountain. We just wanted to share this experience with you because we believe that you truly understand and we think somebody should know.
It was a sound impossible to copy, a vibration so powerful it shook the very ground beneath their feet. After that definitive confirmation, they packed quickly, ensured their site was clean, left their offerings of apples, and rapidly departed the mountain. They shared their experience, confident that others would understand the raw terror they endured. A thick, suffocating silence blankets the woods as the team returns to a familiar but disturbing location, an abandoned mine shaft deep in the Canadian wilderness. This was not their first time here, but this time, something felt different, heavier. They were invited back because locals kept hearing strange whistlings, moans, and inhuman noises echoing through the trees at night, classic signs of Bigfoot activity.
What is that noise? What is that?
Within minutes of arriving, low moans coming from the forest, followed by a hiss that stops everyone in their tracks. "Something just hissed," one of them says, eyes scanning the thick underbrush. And then came a whistle, faint, unnatural, and coming from the mine entrance of our end. The team splits up to investigate, and though they joke to keep their spirits high, the nervous energy is clear. They all feel watched.
I just saw something like really big over there. It wasn't even rolling because I'm trying to make sure I don't friggin' fall off the side of this cliff, but something like up there.
While hiking along the edge of a cliff, one of them spots something large and dark moving above. Not a moose, not a bear, but something taller. "That wasn't a bear," he says. "It moved like a person, a huge one." With rumors of Bigfoot sightings in this forest, the group suddenly realizes that they may not be alone. The flies are swarming. The woods seem to pulse with pressure. and the shadows begin to play tricks. Or was that the reality?
Ugh, it's so cold. Why is it so cold in here? Ooh, I have to say, first thing, it kind of smells in here.
That night, they begin alone challenges inside the mine, each member taking turns entering its cold, claustrophobic tunnels alone. Inside, something moves. Ice cracks, rocks fall, and the mine begins to rumble with unsettling energy. "It smells like sulfur," someone says before a deep thump echoes in the darkness. It's not the bats. They've been startled too. Something else is here, something watching, just beyond the beam of their flashlights.
Whoa!
The deeper they go, the worse it gets. A shadow lurks, fast and silent. Then a chorus of bats erupts, spiraling into the air, their panic only deepening the group's fear. One member sees a form standing still at the end of a tunnel, but by the time he blinks, it's gone. "There's something there," he sounds terrified. It wasn't a bat. As they exit the mine, hearts racing, one thing becomes clear.
What do you think that was?
I don't know, bro. Like, I was getting so many different vibes, like paranormal vibes.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
like a bear / Bigfoot type of thing. You know what I mean?
Like, yeah, I thought like some sort of animal was gonna come out and devour me at some point.
Yeah, because it did sound like an animal. Like,
Yeah.
Whatever is in these woods doesn't want to be found, but it sure was watching. Whether it's a cryptid, a spirit, or something we can't explain, the team knows this wasn't just an abandoned mine or a creepy hike. They may have walked straight into Bigfoot's territory. Some encounters are easy to dismiss. Others refuse to fade into silence. And then there are those that straddle the line, caught between hoax and truth, between disbelief and a glimpse into something primal. This is the story of one such line, a line blurred by two separate video clips, a common mystery, and one name that won't disappear, Randall Hart. On the surface, it began like many supposed Bigfoot captures do, flickering footage, a shaking hand, a figure just distant enough to elude clarity. But the details tell a more tangled tale. It started with a short 10-second clip uploaded by a user named Dave Boccia. The figure that appeared on screen wasn't merely blurry, it was beastly, towering. Its proportions were wrong for a man. The arms hung low, unnaturally so. The gait was slow and weighty, but coordinated in a way that didn't mimic human movement. The creature didn't turn to the camera, it didn't posture, it simply walked, with a chilling nonchalance. To see the clip that left seasoned viewers second-guessing their instincts. At first glance, it seemed like another potential win for believers. But beneath the surface, the story darkens. According to The Unexplained with Adam, the same video, or something alarmingly similar, has appeared before. Only this time, it wasn't under the alias Dave Boccia, but rather under the name Randall Hart, a figure long accused of staging cryptid hoaxes. And now, this channel claims Hart is using false identities to repurpose old content, stoke belief, and cloud the waters of genuine research. But then comes the twist. The second clip in question, allegedly featuring Randall Hart's Bigfoot holding a chicken in its massive hand, refuses to be easily dismissed. The same questions emerge. Could it really be a man in costume? The scale is off. The arm length, again, matches no ordinary person. And the motion, the slow, deliberate rise of the creature's shoulders, the flex in its knee joint as it steps, is strangely fluid. To observe what believers argue is too authentic to be dismissed outright. Skeptics cry foul. The repeated appearances of the same style, the same locations, the same camera angle all suggest a single source of manipulation. But believers are not so easily swayed. They argue that even if Randall Hart is the name behind both uploads, this does not necessarily mean the footage is fake. Instead, they suggest a more curious possibility. What if the man known for hoaxes accidentally captured something real? The idea might seem wild, but cryptid history is full of moments where pranksters stumbled into authenticity. And in these two clips, the details don't quite scream costume. There's no visible fabric seam, no stiffness around the knees. The arm swing has weight, momentum, and the creature never reacts like a human playing a part. Watch yourself side-by-side comparison to catch the subtle shift in the creature's posture. Something a performer would almost certainly overplay, not underplay. This, perhaps, is what makes these clips so unsettling. Not their quality, but their restraint. The creature never turns toward the lens, never acknowledges the presence of the camera, and most notably, never offers the kind of exaggerated motion typical of a fake. So could these two clips, from Dave Boccia and Randall Hart, have originated from the same person? Absolutely. The visual language is too similar. The environment, lighting, and even the figure's pacing all echo each other. But does that shared origin automatically prove a hoax? That is where believers draw the line. So we ask you, where does this footage fall? If the same hand is behind both videos, is it a skilled manipulator doubling down, or a conflicted man who just once might have caught the real thing? Some questions may never be fully answered, but in the pursuit of the unexplained, even the whispers of doubt can fuel the fire of belief. Let us know what you think. Do the long arms and fluid motion seem too perfect to fake? Is Randall Hart fooling us again, or did he finally see what others only chase in dreams? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And more importantly, tell us, which cryptid encounter should we investigate next? Is it the Mothman's return, the Texas Goat Man, or something hiding in your own backyard? It was a quiet ride through the deep woods of Massachusetts. The kind of solo escape most mountain bikers dream about. No crowds, no traffic, just the sound of tires crunching over dirt and the wind moving through trees older than any town nearby. It was 2015, and this rider, armed with a GoPro, was ready to capture his day in the wild. The forest was thick, branches hung low. Sunlight barely pierced through the dense green above. It was peaceful, untouched, the kind of place that hides more than it reveals. Then, it happened. The rider slowed down. He'd seen something. Just off the trail, between the trees, movement, small, quick, but not in a way he could explain. It wasn't a deer, it wasn't a rabbit, it wasn't anything he'd seen on these trails before. It moved differently. He pulled over. The GoPro picked up the tension in his breath, the way the camera began to shake slightly in his hands. His voice dropped to a whisper. And then, a flash. A figure darted between the trunks, covered in hair, low to the ground, upright. It didn't crawl. It didn't hop. It ran, on two legs, like a child running through the woods, but wild. He panned the camera, tried to zoom in, but the thing had already vanished into the undergrowth, moving like it knew the land, knew how to hide, how to disappear before anyone got a clear look. Some might laugh and say it was a baby bear, but when you watch the clip, when you pause it, frame by frame, you see something else. The posture, the proportion, the strange grace in its movement. something that doesn't add up. And that's what unsettled him the most, because if it was a baby, where was the mother? For a moment he just stood there. The trail he'd loved for years now felt strange, unfamiliar, like the woods weren't just trees and moss anymore, but something alive, watching, deciding. Massachusetts has always carried its share of wilderness legends, but this was real, caught on camera. Brief as it was. So the next time you're alone on a forest trail, breathing in the silence, surrounded by nothing but woods, keep your eyes open. Because if that was a young Sasquatch, then something much bigger is out there too. And it's probably not far behind. When the footage aired on the History Channel, it immediately set off all the critics and skeptics. What viewers saw was something straight out of a sci-fi thriller, a towering 8-foot creature covered in brown hair, locked inside what looked like a heavy-duty cage. Armed men stood nearby, tense but watchful. The only sound was the low hum of equipment, adding to the creepy quiet that hung over the scene. For some, the fact that it was being shown on a major network gave the footage instant credibility. Could it be? Had Bigfoot finally been caught? But not everyone bought it. Critics were quick to point out how controlled the whole thing looked. The lighting was perfect, the background too neat. It felt more like a movie set than a real discovery in the wild. Still, there was no denying the fact of what was in that cage. The creature stared straight into the camera, its eyes sharp and intelligent. Not wild, but aware yet also angry. That stare shook people. Was it just an actor in a costume? Or were we looking into the eyes of something ancient yet unknown? Then a man stepped forward to speak, breaking the silence. He explained that they planned to collect samples, hair, blood, whatever they could to analyze the creature's DNA.
Okay, this is it. We're gonna have to tranquilize the animal again so that I can safely go in and get some samples. I'll be taking blood, hair, and saliva so that we can compare to other sightings and establish a baseline genetic profile.
The goal was to finally answer the question, what exactly is Bigfoot? But the creature wasn't going down without a fight. It began thrashing violently against the bars of its cage, every movement filled with strength. It wasn't just angry, it was furious and completely unafraid. The men kept their distance, weapons ready, watching carefully. The air felt filled with tension, and then came the dart. A tranquilizer was fired, hitting the creature squarely. It shook, but kept fighting, unwilling to go down. Slowly, though, its body began to give in. The energy drained from its limbs, and finally it collapsed, unconscious. The team rushed inside the cage, wasting no time. They carefully took the samples they'd come for, working quickly around the enormous, slumped figure. The final shot lingered on the still body of the creature, surrounded by people with weapons, a legendary figure, brought down not by hunters, but by curiosity and cold science. And just like that, the debate exploded. Had we just witnessed history, or the best theatrics ever pulled off? For believers, it was the proof they'd been waiting for. For skeptics, it was just another well-produced mystery. But one thing was certain, no one could look away. It started simple, just another trek through the dense woods. The forest was thick, old, and drenched from heavy rain. The explorer climbed down a ditch, cutting through the tangled brush, scanning for signs of activity. Alone, deep in the trees, the mood quickly shifted. A heavy grunt broke the silence, bow, followed by the sound of wood twisting. Not snapping, but twisting like something forcing the tree to break. Panic kicked in. He wasn't waiting to see what was out there. He turned and left the area fast. A few minutes later, a tall balsam tree caught his attention.
It's still alive because it still has like foliage on it. You can see there. It's a healthy tree by the looks of things, but it's been completely snapped off and pushed over recently. What's interesting right here, we're pretty close to the road still, but you can see there's almost like a natural trail right through here. Kind of twists around a bit.
It was alive, still green, but something had snapped it recently. Nearby, a poplar, also freshly broken. Both trees were solid, no rot, no weakness. Something with serious strength had pushed them down. Between the fallen trunks, a wood trail cut through the forest, almost too perfect. Near that path, he spotted a deep, fresh depression in the soil. Maybe a footprint, maybe not. But it was strange. The rain came down harder. Water started pooling everywhere. Before heading back, he tried something. Wood knocks. See for yourself.
Might have to return again when it's more dry. Before I head back, I might as well just try a couple of wood knocks on this tree with a stick here. See if I get an answer.
He slammed a stick against a tree, pausing between knocks, listening carefully. The woods stayed silent, no answers. But the weight of the silence felt thick, like something was out there, just choosing not to respond. As he pushed deeper along the swollen river, he remembered a local elder's story. He had been told about a second pond nearby, a place where Sasquatch had been spotted. It wasn't easy terrain, thick brush, fallen trees, treacherous footing. He waded through the cold water, slipping across rotting logs. The deeper he went, the more isolated he became.
I heard a story from a local elder today who explained that this second pond I heard about from another community member here is along this river. I just keep following the river and I should find the lake and then the second pond where Sasquatches are known to congregate, according to both of these two community members. You can see there's all this water pooled from the river being so swollen, but now I can wade through this stuff.
The paths disappeared, the river was raging, and the woods closed in from every side. He climbed up slippery banks, surrounded by ancient forest. The river was too deep to cross, the current too strong, but the curiosity pushed him further. He tried imitating the Ohio howl. Here's the moment it happened.
I've never tried to imitate the Ohio howl or anything before, so I'm probably going to butcher it, but let's see if anything happens. And hopefully if they do hear me over the river, something will respond.
His call echoed through the trees. No immediate response, but tension filled the air. As he paused, a pelican suddenly shot up from the water, catching him completely off guard. The ground became even more dangerous. Every step risked a fall into the fast-moving river.
The footing is super treacherous here. Every step is a challenge. I don't want to fall into the river. Oh. Almost did there. It's so thick here. Really hard to make any headway. Really hard to make any headway. To make any headway. Thought I heard something up there.
He kept moving carefully but heard something ahead. A sound from the bluff above. He couldn't see it, but something was there. The elder had mentioned this exact spot, a hill known for strange activity. He scanned the trees, feeling watched from the other side of the river. The bird calls came again, but they didn't sound right. Not like any bird he knew.
I just heard that weird bird call again. It was like a bird, but not quite like a bird. I've heard Bigfoots imitate other animals. I didn't have the camera rolling, of course, but even if I had, I'm not sure you would have heard it. It came from that way this time, kind of back the way I came. It was super quiet. I could barely hear it even with my ears over the noise of the river, but...
They were close, too quiet to fully catch on camera, but sharp enough to grab his attention. He kept hearing them from different spots as if something was circling him. His instincts screamed not to go further, but he pushed on. Watch this clip closely.
I still haven't moved from this spot, but I just heard some trees moving above my head up this bluff here. Sounded like something big, moving trees and foliage. There's been dead silence, apart from the river. As far as the woods themselves, dead silence this whole time, except for those two weird bird-like calls that didn't sound natural somehow.
He tried another howl. Moments later, trees shifted above him. Something big was moving. Heavy steps brushed through the foliage, just one set of movements, but they were deliberate. The river roared beside him, but the woods were otherwise dead silent. The crossing became impossible. The river was too deep, too strong. As he turned back, he caught it. A flash of movement high on the bluff. Quick, dark, gone in seconds. He switched on his headlamp, scanning the trees. Take a look at this.
Big and black. See, for all the skeptics who are always wondering why we don't have the camera rolling, it's because it happens in a second and then it's over and you don't know when it's coming. It's so frustrating. Yeah, there.
Something large moved again. It filled a gap between the trees, just for a moment. He couldn't say what it was, but it wasn't small. Rain started to fall. His phone battery dropped fast. As he left the area, another loud thud echoed from the direction he'd just come from. Like a tree crashing down, but distant. He pushed through the dark, glancing back, feeling like something was still watching. No clear sighting, no solid proof, just flashes, sounds, and a strong feeling he wasn't alone. What do you think was out there? DJ Faison, joined by psychic medium Amber and Chris, went on to Purgatory Road in Delaware, a place known for both paranormal activity and, surprisingly, Bigfoot sightings. CJ, a self-proclaimed Bigfoot skeptic, was about to have his knowledge of Bigfoot challenged due to the incidents that were to follow. The night began with an immediate sense of strangeness. As Amber, the psychic, offered her initial readings of the road's energy, a strange, almost on-cue sound, like a fire alarm, started and abruptly stopped.
Hey, is there somebody out there?
God, somebody comes running out of the woods right now.
Yep, I'm out.
Never seen my fast on that fast. Can't see that.
So, to answer your question, yes, I have been in the woods, but not like deep in those woods.
Is it like a state park thing, or what is it?
Yeah, it's owned by the state, yeah.
It was a creepy start to the strangeness that would unfold. CJ also pointed out different tree formations, bent and curved in ways that were just not possible. hinting at something large and powerful being responsible for this. As they went deeper into the woods, the atmosphere grew heavier. Amber warned about a feeling of being dragged deeper, a sense of being lost. Then, the night took another strange turn. A fire truck, sirens blaring, suddenly appeared on the gloomy road, its crew asking if anyone had called 911.
Call 911.
They can't find who called 911.
He just said you didn't call 911, did you?
There's not houses like
anywhere near here.
No.
Dude, what?
What?
Come out here though.
The
Like, it's a crazy night, right?
That is insane.
I'm speechless right now. I don't know what to think.
So they got a call. Did they ping it this way? We should have asked them.
I know.
Why else would they have been out here?
Kind of like in a
They're
hurry.
like looking for who called.
This was shocking, as there were no houses in the area, and the timing felt very weirdly coincidental, especially because of the full moon that night. The incident left them deeply shocked, questioning the reality of what in the world was going on. The most shocking event of the night was when they were making their way back. A large, dark, upright shadow figure, too big to be human, was seen moving urgently through the woods.
Okay. It's like really soft ground. I don't know if I'm walking in like a marsh area, and I don't know where.
CJ, despite his doubts, was left stunned, admitting it was either the darkest and largest shadow figure he'd ever seen, or indeed the myth, the legend, Bigfoot itself. The encounter was so intense that it drained his camera battery almost instantly, adding another layer of unexplainable shock. Throughout the night, they also encountered a weird, unidentifiable burnt smell, heard creepy whistles, and witnessed more of the strangely bent trees, reinforcing the idea that something extraordinary, possibly Bigfoot, was watching them from the shadows of this haunted forest. The footage begins without warning. A narrow dirt road stretches deep into Idaho's backcountry. No other vehicles, no distant voices. Just the crunch of tires over gravel, the hum of solitude.
About 6 miles before my final destination, I run upon a Forest Service outpost, and the sign before it is a good sign.
And the creeping sense that something out here is watching. This wasn't just a casual trip. He had studied the region thoroughly, identifying it as a possible Bigfoot habitat due to its isolation and lack of human interference. Meadows, streams, and old-growth forests surrounded the area.
And since I've become a Bigfoot guy, I take an audio recorder and I put an audio recorder out every night whenever I go camping.
Far removed from any main roads or camping traffic. Bani, the goal was clear: find evidence. And he came prepared. He brought an audio recorder, strategically placed it 3 miles into the wilderness, and then returned to camp, hoping to entice something or someone to follow him back. Watch yourself.
Yeah, this stuff's
tall. Tall as I am. Taller.
In this segment, he sets up his camp near a quiet stream and explains the plan. Record potential sounds and activity overnight while documenting everything on camera. The area is still and heavy with silence, perfect conditions for any large creature to go unnoticed. As evening falls, the forest begins to change.
Just to say, hey, this is what I saw. I am so bummed. So as far as the description goes, seeing it and thinking about it, I remember seeing something similar to it online like 5 or 6 years ago or something.
Light fades quickly, the wind calms, and the atmosphere grows tense. The camper starts a fire, surrounded by towering trees and distant rustles. But what starts as a peaceful night quickly turns into something else. He begins hearing movement from the tree line, not loud but unmistakable. A steady shifting, deliberate and heavy, just out of sight to his left. This was no deer. Watch yourself.
And I grab my memory card, I put my memory card in, I get back out, bring it up, and of course, it's gone. It's not there. Yeah, and I scan everywhere, and this is me scanning everywhere, and I'm shaking. You can see how bad I'm shaking. I am just shaking because this is so crazy, but I mean, I don't see anything.
He grabs his newly purchased night vision goggles, still fresh from the box. In a moment of pure tension, he fumbles with the batteries, hands shaking slightly as the sounds from the trees continue. When he finally gets the goggles powered on, he scans the darkness. And there it was, something tall, standing upright, staring Tech. At first it didn't move. Then, slowly, it began to lean.
Okay, this is way lower, but I'm doing live video far away with the video camera, and then I'm also doing a test. Count my steps from here. 1, 2.
Not a sway, a deliberate sideways lean, further than any normal person could go. It straightened up, then leaned again, opposite direction. Back and forth, not rocking, but bending, watching. The figure's proportions and movement didn't align with any known animal. The bending was fluid, but too deep, unnatural. The camper's internal instincts were screaming, "This isn't human," yet his eyes confirmed it was there. Watch yourself.
At night from the night vision camera, and this is the daytime recreation, and it's not exactly the same, but you know, it's pretty close. This leaning tree's there, this leaning tree's there. My recollection is, you know, it was about probably this head branch tall, you know, which is this over here.
Through the night vision lens, he could see the figure's dark outline, faintly illuminated in infrared. It stood motionless between each lean, as if trying to study him without approaching. The behavior matched numerous eyewitness reports describing Bigfoot's so-called swaying behavior. Though in this case, the creature wasn't swaying, but leaning, peering, evaluating.
But it looks a little different during the daytime. A little bit different angle. I might have been taller here to my eyes versus on the tripod here. So I had two cameras rolling at the same time. This side is, you know, just what it looks like with your own eyes, you know, the camera not zoomed in.
The encounter lasted long enough to leave a permanent mark on the camper's memory. There was no charge, no sound, no aggressive gesture, just presence. A silent, towering figure moving in a way that defied logic. Was it curiosity that brought the figure so close? Was it following his trail from the recorder site exactly as he'd planned?
Okay, this is where I first go, is the farthest way it probably is. It's probably right there. I go to where that tree's leaning over, and then I come back a little closer. I think I come back too close here. And you can see the difference in both.
Or had he trespassed into territory rarely disturbed, and the creature was simply observing? No answers came that night. But the footage, the reaction, and the sequence of events, recorded and documented, add to a growing body of eerily similar encounters. British Columbia, the Tantalus Range, remote, jagged, icy. It was July 2nd, 20, a clear summer day in the high Alpine. Wildlife biologist Miles Lamont was hiking near Squamish, Canada, when he noticed something unusual.
We're on top of Tricuni Peak, and pretty sure there's just Sasquatch down there.
Oh my god.
I can't really see it very well. There's this little black dot walking in the middle of the snow, in the middle of nowhere.
High above the valley floor, near 7,000 feet elevation, a tiny black figure moved across a snowy ridge. From that distance, it looked like a speck. But it wasn't still. It was climbing. Fast, upright, deliberate. Lamont caught it on film, puzzled. "If that's a human," he said.
Why would he walk up that way? If that was a human, why would you walk up that ridge or that snow line? Why would you not just go straight down?
Why would they be walking up that ridge? No one hikes uphill into the cold unless they have a reason. And certainly not without gear. No backpacks, no snowshoes, no visible equipment. Just a lone, dark figure moving across deep snow as if the terrain didn't matter. Lamont, an experienced outdoorsman and wildlife biologist, had seen plenty of backcountry travelers.
Good thing we brought beers. We could lure him over here. Dude, that's bizarre.
This wasn't like any of them. His voice in the footage carries a strange mix of curiosity and tension. He even jokes, maybe if we had a few beers we could lure him over. But he's unsettled. This was not quite like any of those, he later said. It was a bit different. The video stirred up waves online. Debates erupted. Was it a person? Or something else?
We're in the middle of nowhere right now. I don't know how high we are, but we're probably close to 7,000 feet. 6,500 maybe.
That's when a man named Peter Tennant, or Ridgewalker Pete, stepped forward. He claimed the figure was him. A solo hiker from White Rock, BC, Pete said he had been in the area that same summer. No pack, no snowshoes, just an emergency locator. He was exploring. Simple, harmless. But then, the timeline unraveled.
But I mean, he's hiking through snow like it's his job. And where the hell is he going? I mean, there's nowhere to go that way.
Pete claimed he was on Tricuni Mountain during the last week of July. Lamont's footage, dated July 2nd, 3 weeks apart, different locations, same range, but not the same day. So if it wasn't Pete, who or what was it? A figure, alone, high in the snow, without gear, moving quickly where few dare to tread. In the deep wilderness of British Columbia, far from roads and watchers, maybe legends walk the ridgelines after all. And sometimes, we catch them on camera.
I don't...
In June 2018, Jen and Gina, also known as the She-Squatchers, headed out to a remote, swampy bog in Minnesota after hearing about a possible Bigfoot sighting. According to the witness, they'd seen something big and mysterious moving between two groups of trees deep in the wetlands. Knowing how risky it would be to hike through that kind of terrain, the two decided not to go in blindly. Instead, they found a safer spot nearby and set up with their night vision gear, hoping to spot something from a distance. For hours, they scanned the area through the darkness, eyes locked on the patch of woods where the sighting was reported.
What are you using? The recording of the, Can you see it?
Not right now.
The bog was too tough to cross that night, but even from a distance, they stayed alert in hopes for any sign that the stories might be true. Just as Jen and Gina were about to pack up and call it a night, something strange and completely unexpected caught their eyes. Deep in the trees, just where the Bigfoot had supposedly been seen, lights started to flicker and move.
This is interesting.
Can you see it? Through there? That's weird.
It's moving.
These weren't the kind of lights you'd mistake for flashlights or reflections. They shifted and darted, as if they had a mind of their own. The two women stared, stunned, then quickly turned their night vision camera back on and aimed it at the strange display. They managed to capture some of it on video, watching the lights float and pulse in ways that made no sense. Trying to make sense of it, Jen pulled up satellite images to check for roads or houses nearby, or anything that might explain what they were seeing. But there was nothing. No roads, no cabins.
Can't see any of them now. But I'm getting it on tape. Now it's toward the bottom. Can you see it?
No signs of human activity at all. Just marshland and trees. And then, just when they thought the night couldn't get weirder, it did. As they were getting ready to leave and turned off their night vision camera, the lights inside their car suddenly flickered on and off. Not once, but 3 times, on their own. There was no one touching the controls. The timing was creepy, and it left them shocked.
I can see one.
There was 2. It's moving through.
Wondering if it was somehow connected to the lights they had just seen in the bog. They couldn't say for sure what had happened, but one thing was crystal clear. The whole experience was deeply disturbing. Whatever was out there, it wasn't something they could explain, and it only added to the growing mystery surrounding the Minnesota Bigfoot. It was sometime after midnight when things took a strange turn. A team of 3 Bigfoot researchers, working under the DMAX UK banner, were deep in the wilderness, an unmarked forested zone far from urban noise or interference. The night was quiet, almost unnaturally so. Armed with flashlights, camera gear, and night vision support from a command center miles away, the group pressed on, more hopeful than convinced, waiting for even the smallest anomaly to justify the risks of a nocturnal expedition. But then something happened. Something neither of them could quite explain. Both froze. One instinctively lifted the torch toward the slope. The other just muttered under his breath, "Was that walking on 2 legs?"
Okay, just explain what you just saw that we both just saw.
It was
something
a black shadow in my light running from right to left.
And it was on 2 legs.
Seriously, I don't know what that was.
What is happening?
2 of the researchers, Ronnie and Maria, had stopped near a ridge to assess their route forward. That's when they caught it. A figure. Not in full view, not clearly defined, but there in the peripheral edge of their flashlight's reach. Tall, upright, moving. It wasn't just the movement, it was the way it moved. Smooth, silent, deliberate. Not crashing through the underbrush like a deer or bear. It moved like it knew they were watching, and it didn't want to be seen. Then the rocks started falling. Not rolling down naturally, thrown. Small stones pinged off nearby trees and landed near their feet, one after another. That changed everything. Now they weren't just looking for something, they were being watched. Their voices remained hushed, but panic had crept in around the edges. They weren't sure what they saw, but they knew they saw something. A shadow, tall and lean, crossing the ridgeline against the backdrop of stars. For a moment they stood silently, straining their ears and eyes in the dark, trying to confirm it.
No, it's further that way. And it went from right to left. Now it's further that way. Let's keep walking and see what happens. Ronnie and I were shining our light up on the ridge because of the rocks coming down, and very clearly something walked in front of that light, creating a shadow.
The 2 immediately called in the sighting to the command center. Their voices were urgent, but not exaggerated. This wasn't theater. It was raw reaction, genuine confusion, possibly fear. They described the figure, the movement, the stone throwing. But when asked for more specifics, neither could fully articulate what they'd witnessed, because they didn't know.
Hello?
Hey, Bryce, it's me and Ronnie here.
Hey, guys. Hey, man.
It's really late. What's going on?
We have come out to a spot where we're getting an unusual amount of activity.
We just had some crazy stuff happen to us.
What happened?
I saw a huge figure by the top of this ravine where all these rocks were being thrown at us.
Later that night, back at camp, Mireya lay restless. Even hours after the incident, something still didn't sit right. She swore she could still hear faint movement just beyond the tree line. Crunches in the leaves. Subtle. Paced. As if whatever had been out there hadn't gone far.
We just experienced something so bizarre, and I've been debating whether or not to do this video diary because I'm so conflicted. I know what I saw, and there's a part of me that doesn't know how to explain it.
The next morning, they returned to the ridge. The air was colder now. The adrenaline of the previous night had worn off, leaving behind a lingering sense of doubt. Were their minds playing tricks on them? Was it just shadow and wind? Or had they actually seen something real? They scanned the terrain above the slope, trying to retrace the moment. No clear footprints, no broken branches, nothing definitive. But something about the location still felt charged. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was expectant.
I don't know about you, but I've been like tripping out over that shadow figure. I'm still scratching my head on that.
Ronnie and Maria are headed to the ridge above where they spotted a mysterious shadow just hours ago.
It's pretty strange.
But first, they've planned a rendezvous with Bryce.
That's when Bryce arrived. While the others were out in the field, Bryce had been working behind the scenes, analyzing the raw footage taken during the encounter. He'd used basic editing software to enhance contrast, slow movement, and adjust the shadows. And what he brought to the team was hard to dismiss. The original clip was replayed, and as expected, it was hard to make out. But then, frame by frame, Bryce rolled through the enhanced version. Its motion was smooth, unhurried, and, most disturbingly, it seemed to blend into the surroundings almost as it passed.
An outline.
Right.
But we don't really know what was causing that shadow. I mean, there was nothing between us and that rock wall
But
except
I believe
the river.
there was.
What do you think then?
Bigfoot have, and this goes back to Native American lore, they have this ability referred to in the researching world as cloaking, or the ability to go invisible.
Bryce had a theory, and it wasn't new. A year earlier, he had met with physicist Dr. Michael Masters, a man who didn't laugh off the idea of cloaking or invisibility as myth. According to Dr. Masters, nature is filled with animals that camouflage. The idea that a higher-order species, especially one evolved to avoid human detection, could have a form of cloaking, whether biological or environmental, wasn't out of the question. Could it be optical camouflage, thermal redirection, or something even more advanced that we simply don't understand?
Turns out invisibility we actually know how to do, right? If we can figure out how to make it in the lab, it's not unreasonable to assume that biology could have figured it out through evolution.
That would make sense if you had a Bigfoot that was in front of us cloaking. We couldn't visually see it with our own eyes.
The team didn't jump to conclusions, but they also couldn't dismiss what they saw. The footage wasn't conclusive, no, but it was strange. Stranger than any bear sighting. Stranger than any trick of the light. What rattled them wasn't just what they might have seen, but how easily it slipped away. To this day, the clip remains one of the most hotly debated moments in Bigfoot investigation circles. Some insist it's just a shadow, a coincidence of lighting and movement. Others see it as possible evidence that these creatures have abilities well beyond what we've assumed. Whether it was trickery of light or a glimpse into something truly beyond explanation, one thing is certain: the wilderness held its secret, and it wasn't ready to let it go.
I'll check back in with you
Thank
guys
you.
later on.
Thanks.
Nice work. All right.
I am now more confused than maybe before, but
know.
relieved that what we saw is now on video.
That's incredible.
This footage is shocking. I really thought this was going to give me the answers I was looking for. And now, even after seeing that footage, I'm no closer to understanding what made that shadow. And that doesn't sit.
This time, the hunt begins with a connection to the most iconic Bigfoot encounter in history. In a segment featured by the Travel Channel, investigator Bryce Johnson reaches out to none other than Bob Gimlin, one of the two men behind the legendary 1967 Patterson-Gimlin film, the clearest and most debated Bigfoot footage ever captured. Gimlin, now in his 90s, remains a steadfast figure in the Bigfoot research community, still standing by what he saw that day along Bluff Creek. For decades, skeptics have questioned it, but Bob has never wavered. As Bryce contacts him, the stakes are high. One of the current team members has been hospitalized, forcing the operation to quickly adapt. Bryce asks Bob for help, not just for guidance, but for a replacement. A new set of eyes, experienced and level-headed, to join the mission.
I'm gonna reach out to Bob Gimlin.
Hey, Bob.
Hey, Bryce, mighty nice to see you again.
Likewise. How you doing?
Hey, fine, thank you.
Good.
How's everything going, Bryce?
I had to rush one of my team members to the hospital last night. I need to find a replacement for him immediately, and I was wondering if you might have anybody in mind.
I can get you some names and get it sent to you as soon as possible.
That'd be great. And these are people you trust?
Yes, sir. Good, trustworthy people.
Meanwhile, back in the field, Mariah and Russell are recalibrating. They're out in the woods, drawing up a new strategy. With recent sightings in the area and the right environmental conditions in place, the team agrees. This could be the perfect night to draw something out of the shadows. They waste no time.
In the time being, while Bryce works to replace RPG.
I really want to investigate that spot where I got that smell from.
This is where RPG and I went. This is where we saw the game trails. Bryce was actually able to load a supposed Bigfoot sound.
Operation begins. Mariah pulls out a speaker and plays one of the team's previously recorded Bigfoot vocalizations, a long, guttural sound believed to mimic a territorial call. It cuts through the trees and echoes across the dark. They hope it'll provoke a reaction, either from curiosity or challenge.
Hear that? Oh my God.
Miles away, Bryce is on the road, headed toward a new interview with a key eyewitness, Brian Zemp, a man who claims to have had a close-range encounter with a creature that defied explanation.
We used to climb all the trees. So we were having fun. All of a sudden, we heard this most guttural sound where it just projected and you just felt it.
Back in the forest, Mariah and Russell start to notice subtle signs. Not tracks exactly, but disturbed terrain, broken branches, displaced brush, and a faint trail leading off the ridge. They're not convinced yet, but they follow it anyway.
Well, that's interesting.
It's like something.
But quite honestly, I'm not sure what that is.
That's when Russell finds something unusual, a clump of coarse, dark hair. He bags it carefully, labeling it for DNA testing. They've found strange hairs before, but this one feels different, longer, thicker, and unlike anything native to the area.
My first reaction would be,
That's a bobcat. But we're gonna take it.
there we go.
Some hair right here. This is interesting. I don't know what this is.
The team is now split between direct investigation and ongoing interviews. While Bryce is collecting testimony and expanding their historical context, Mariah and Russell are in real time, pushing deeper into uncertainty. A crew member of the YouTube channel Sunny Vader went on a solitary 4-day and night exploration to a remote winter campsite deep within the Canadian Rockies. This wasn't just a camping trip. It was an investigation into unsettling events that had forced a local native band to abandon Spirit Camp, a sacred site once used for ceremonies. Some of the recently occurring disturbing instances, including alleged body tampering, strange vocalizations, and unconfirmed sightings, had made the area too spooky even for those who had lived there. The crew members' mission was to discover clues, spending days in the snow-capped landscape, observing strange drawings etched into trees, and looking at the prancing deer. He gathered wood to help build fires for warmth, going through both day and night in the isolated, freezing environment. His constant determination in the snow-covered paths, surrounded by the unsettling history of the site, set the stage for an unexplainable encounter with the unknown. As night fell over the silent, snow-covered terrain, the camper's senses were heightened by the extreme quiet and bitter cold. He was alone, fully immersed in an environment that had driven a native band away due to incidents that could not be understood. The crisp air carried every distant sound, and the stark white of the snow made every shadow appear massive. He maintained his camp, keeping the fire going for warmth and protection, while his recording equipment silently monitored the freezing surroundings. The isolation was intense, broken only by the natural sounds of the wild forest. Then, in the dead of night, the silence was destroyed. The camper was suddenly awakened by a strange sound coming from the darkness beyond his camp. It was unlike any animal sound he recognized, which was deep, guttural, and yet somehow appeared intelligent. The sound sliced through the cold air, raising the hair on the nape of his neck. This was exactly the kind of strange sounds that had been reported at Spirit Camp, one of the key reasons the local band had left the site. He lay still, listening intently as the chilling sound echoed across the frozen landscape. That moment confirmed everything he'd heard about Spirit Camp. The eerie stillness, the odd markings on trees he'd noticed earlier, the jittery deer, they'd all hinted at something just out of sight. But it was the sound that night, raw and impossible to explain, that truly shook him. After spending 4 long days and nights alone at what was once a sacred ceremonial burial ground, he was sure of one thing: something was still there. And maybe that's why some places, no matter how meaningful, are better left alone. The cold air hung heavy in Provo Canyon that December day, the kind of quiet that blankets the forest just before dusk. A lone hiker, wandering off the beaten path, unknowingly stepped into a moment that would soon stir debate across cryptid communities. The camera captured something, a shape, moving just beyond the trees. The video, posted by Camper Mountain, a small channel with just over 40 subscribers, claimed a striking discovery: a Bigfoot sighting off-trail, dated December 2, 2012. This is most likely the same Bigfoot spotted a month ago in Provo Canyon, the uploader noted simply, leaving the question open for viewers to decide. Watch yourself as the footage shows a shadowy figure, tall and broad, moving deliberately through thick undergrowth. The figure's gait is heavy, measured, almost purposeful. The canopy filters scarce light, making every movement tense and uncertain. Provo Canyon has long been a hotspot for cryptid enthusiasts, with previous reports sparking interest and skepticism in equal measure. The forest here, dense and steep, offers both cover and challenge to those who claim to have encountered the elusive creature. The consistency of sightings over time adds weight. Could this be the same creature returning to familiar grounds? Critics argue the figure could be a hiker or an animal caught at a distance, blurred by the low resolution and difficult terrain. Yet believers point to the slow, almost unnatural movement, too deliberate for a deer, too large for a human moving casually off-trail. The lingering question: what was it doing there, so close yet so elusive? The silence of the forest is broken only by the rustling leaves. as if the woods themselves hold their breath. No sudden chase, no confrontations, just a brief glimpse that leaves more questions than answers. The mystery of Provo Canyon persists, the legend growing with every new sighting. No roar, no direct encounter, only the unsettling feeling that something watches from just beyond the frame. What do you see in this shadow? Could it be proof that the legend walks these mountains still? Or is it something else entirely? The night was supposed to be peaceful, Christmas 2014 in northern Minnesota, but peace gave way to something far more primal. A shadow moved around the house and yard, a figure too large, too deliberate to be dismissed. The family's dog, alerted by the presence, charged into the dark, barking wildly, only to retreat in fear and confusion. The camera captures it all, blurred, grainy, but unmistakable. A towering silhouette, thick with hair, pacing slowly just beyond the porch light. The tension is palpable, the kind that tightens the chest and makes every breath shallow. The family watches from inside, frozen between fear and fascination. Watch yourself as the figure steps into view, the dog's frantic barking echoing into the night.
Oh my God. No way.
That can't be.
What the hell? Oh my God, are you getting this?
I think so.
Oh my God, a voice whispers, disbelief heavy in the air. Did you see that? Someone's mind is around. The figure moves with an eerie calm, its presence commanding the cold night. The dog's chase ends quickly. It runs back inside, tail tucked, whimpering, a clear warning that this is no ordinary intruder. The family's unease grows, their eyes glued to the fading figure disappearing into the woods. Voices tremble as they murmur, "It's really big. No way. I can't believe it." The unseen creature is more than a story now. It is real, standing just outside their door. The woods seem to close in around the house, the silence after the figure's retreat almost heavier than the moments before. Watch yourself as the family debates whether to investigate, but fear wins out.
We're real scared of them. Ref! You stay here, Ref! You stay here!
The dog remains alert, ears perked, growling at shadows. Footsteps crunch in the snow, too heavy and slow to be human. The atmosphere thickens, each sound amplified in the frigid air. There is no chase, no roar, only the steady, chilling sensation of being watched. The family's voices drop to hushed tones, sharing stories and nervous laughter, trying to mask the fear creeping into their bones. "We're really scared of them," one admits, breaking the fragile calm. Watch yourself as sounds grow closer again. Soft thuds and low growls barely audible.
Oh my God. Oh my God. We better get back inside, guys.
Yeah.
The dog, now reluctant, stays near the door, refusing to venture outside again. The family finally decides to retreat indoors, locking doors, windows, hearts pounding with the weight of an unseen visitor. This encounter leaves no dramatic chase or loud confrontation, just a silent giant's presence felt in the snow-laden woods of Minnesota on a cold Christmas night. The family's unease lingers, their normal holiday forever shadowed by the creature's quiet visit. This next segment revisits Donald Mealer's unnerving encounter, but now it's supported by reinforced local testimony from a veteran hunter who also claims to have seen something extraordinary in the Louisiana backwoods. Donald Mealer, as captured by Animal Planet, isn't just anyone. He's a seasoned hunter. On an overcast day, he set up near a long pipeline corridor in rural Louisiana to hunt game as usual. Suddenly, he sensed something, a movement. He quietly lifted his rifle and, through the scope, watched a large, upright creature emerge from the tree line, one he would describe as unlike any man or bear. The creature turned and vanished so quickly Donald couldn't react further. He didn't snap a photo. "I'm not into all that camera stuff," he says, but the memory has stayed vivid since.
That day was kind of cloudy, overcast. Then I just decided to hunt that morning. And then all of a sudden, it just kind of appeared right there by the pipeline marker. I went to try to pick my gun up to look at it through the scope. I mean, he just whirled and went back in the woods and was gone.
Whether you take his word or not, there's supporting testimony from Mike Woolley, another experienced hunter from Keechee, Louisiana. In December 1981, Woolley was in his deer stand when a deer dashed through underbrush. As he looked up, a 7-8-foot-tall, black, hairy humanoid stood at the base of his stand. At first he thought it was a prankster until the creature didn't respond to shouting. Looking through his rifle scope, Woolley realized it wasn't a man in a suit. Woolley's face-to-face encounter lasted only moments, but it was enough.
My name is Mike Woolley. I'm from Keechee, Louisiana. I had an encounter back in December of 1981 with a Bigfoot while deer hunting. It was a beautiful December day, perfect weather for a hunt. And this little young doe deer come running from the east out of some briars and brush that there's no way a human could walk through that. So the first thing hit my mind, it was somebody dressed up in a suit trying to scare me off my good deer hunting spot.
Like Mealer, he refused to sensationalize. He was collecting deer, not cryptids, yet he openly shared the experience. A giant, hair-covered figure coming within shooting range, refusing to answer. His account was raw, calm, and chilling. Their stories share key details: vast, quiet woods, fleeting sightings, instinct rising before vision. Both men are not the type to chase myths, but both walked into something unexplainable. Together, these incidents paint a strong picture: seasoned hunters and everyday people reacting not to bears or shadows, but to something upright, humanoid, and distinctly strange in the Louisiana woods. Donald Mealer may not have a photo. Mike Woolley didn't either. But for men trained to hunt and survive outdoors, sightings like these challenge what we think we know and hint at something much larger. What we've seen isn't fantasy, it's boots on the ground, eyewitnesses with nothing to gain, equipment that doesn't lie. Whether it's the vanished figure in Yukon, the heatless entity in Utah, or the chilling stare through a hunter's rifle in Louisiana, each moment adds weight to the same question. If this creature isn't real, then why do the signs keep showing up in the same woods, year after year? Because maybe, just maybe, we haven't discovered Bigfoot. Maybe it's Bigfoot that's been watching us all along. If you've had your own experience, drop it in the comments below. And if this footage gave you chills, you're not alone. You ever get that feeling like you're being watched? Not in the city, not in a crowd, but somewhere quiet, isolated, where every sound echoes and the silence feels thick. That's what one man felt deep in the forests of North America. He wasn't out there for anything special, no research, no hunting, just a breath of fresh air, far away from the static of city life. The trees were tall, the forest floor soft with moss. Birds chirped, sunlight filtered gently through the pine branches. Everything felt normal, until it didn't. The man had stopped for a sip of water when something shifted at the edge of his vision. He turned slowly, and that's when he saw it. A figure, large, dark, upright.
It's crazy.
It moved between the trees like it belonged there, not crawling, not hunched, but walking, with long, heavy steps. Its shoulders were massive, arms dangling unnaturally low, swaying slightly as it moved. It was tall, thick, covered head to toe in coarse black hair. But what struck him most wasn't the size, it was the way it moved. There was no panic, no fear. It walked calmly, confidently, like it knew this place, like it owned it, and maybe like it knew it was being watched. The hiker barely breathed. He raised his phone, hit record. You can see it in the clip. The creature doesn't turn, doesn't speed up. It just keeps walking, straight through dense underbrush, like none of it matters. Almost as if it's leading him or warning him. The man whispered to himself, "This isn't right. I'm not supposed to see this." And maybe he wasn't. For years, legends have whispered about creatures in these woods. Bigfoot, Sasquatch, forest giants. But they always vanish before we get proof. Every photo is blurry. Every video is shaky. Every witness is left with more questions than answers. But what if it's not just one? What if they're out there, many of them, watching us from the shadows, walking the same trails, hearing every twig we step on, smelling us long before we know they're there? Every year, hikers disappear. Campers vanish. Some are found. Most aren't. And the forest never says a word. So next time you're alone in the woods and the wind dies, the birds go quiet, and your gut tells you to turn back. Maybe listen, because whatever's watching you might not be human. Have you ever filmed something so ordinary, only to find, hidden in a single frame, something extraordinary? That's exactly what happened when two creators filmed a backyard survival challenge. On playback, viewers noticed something strange. A dark figure standing upright, obscured by trees. It wasn't addressed in the video, but there it was. Tall, broad, rigidly still. Not a crew member, not a prop. Watch yourself.
Oh, no, this can't be, this can't be. No, this guy's gotta be wrong, he's gotta be wrong. That's right where we are.
The freeze frame spread fast. Users started speculating. Was it a person, a suit, or something else entirely? The silhouette didn't match human proportions. Shoulders too wide, head too forward, and the way it blended into the brush, unnatural. The creators took it seriously. What started as a game turned into an investigation. They returned to the spot with cameras, thermal imaging, and casting material. The original tree line wasn't far from the house, but once you stepped past the lawn, the landscape changed quickly. Dense thickets, narrow game trails, quiet, but not empty. Watch yourself.
And if that's not Bigfoot, I don't know what that is, okay? And that was taken literally 50 yards from this house. Now, I triangulated the forest behind us, and if you check it out on the Bigfoot map forum, there is a lot of sightings here. There's even newspaper articles about Bigfoot being seen in this area.
That's when they found the first track. Pressed deep into the soil, wide, with splayed toes, no shoe pattern. Whatever left it had weight. And it wasn't alone. Another track was found 6 feet ahead. Same shape, same size. The stride was massive. They followed it, slowly, carefully. Branches above shoulder level were broken, not crushed by wind, snapped. Bark scraped off from mid-tree height. A heavy passage, intentional movement. One of the team spotted a hair sample tangled in a split branch, nearly 7 feet up. Coarse, gray-brown, root attached. They sealed it in a collection tube. Watch yourself.
It's feeding time. What? Yo, there's like water in there too. Look at that. There's like scratch marks all along this log. What are those? I Don't know. Logan is heading across now. Gonna try and find a path over this massive ditch.
No wildlife approached the area. Even when they left fruit as bait, it remained untouched. But something was moving parallel to them. Out of sight, but not out of range. On thermal, there was a flicker. Something warm, crouched low. It moved between two trees and disappeared. Not a deer, not a raccoon, and too fast for any known animal that size. Further in, they discovered claw marks on a fallen log. Fresh, 4 deep grooves, too spaced apart for any local carnivore. The bark hadn't aged yet. Whatever made it was here recently. Close. Watch yourself.
Okay, so Jake's taking the long way around. I found a path that connects us to the river. But since I've been here alone, I've been hearing a lot of weird things in the woods. I don't think it's Bigfoot, guys. In my opinion, I think Jake's just done a little bit too much research and, you know, he's acting a little crazy. But that's just between you and me.
As darkness fell, the environment shifted. The insects stopped. A heavy rustle echoed from behind. Then, a rock fell. Not rolled, dropped. A tree cracked somewhere uphill. Nothing vocal, but enough to know something was watching, not charging, not fleeing, just present. They stopped at the edge of a ravine. Visibility dropped to 0. It wasn't fear that turned them around, it was instinct. Too many unknowns, and something didn't want to be seen. Watch yourself.
Hairy-looking monster roaming at night. The picture that I took from our last video definitely concerned me, but I still wasn't sure for myself, so we had to push forward, putting all that behind us.
The next morning, they returned. The casts had set. What came out of the ground showed clear impressions. 5 toes, mid-tarsal break, no arch. One was 16 inches long. The weight distribution was off-center, like a creature used to walking uneven terrain. The hair was sent for analysis. No confirmed match, but it didn't align with deer, bear, or canine samples from the region. It remains unidentified. No one was attacked. No structures were found. But what they experienced wasn't entertainment. It was something quietly disturbing. Just far enough outside normal to leave doubt. Just close enough to leave no comfort. Watch yourself.
That's a pretty big foot. Yeah, we'll be able to get a better imprint of what it looks like once we pull this out, but we're gonna need to let it harden. Now we just gotta wait 30 minutes for that to set, and then we can pull it out. I'm not feeling this. Okay, freak it. I keep hearing things. Yeah. Yo, and I know I saw something on that footage, man.
What do you think they captured? A coincidence shaped by branches and shadow, or a brief accidental glimpse into something watching from the woods? Drop your thoughts below. Have you ever filmed something and only noticed the strange part later? Before we dive into the technical evidence behind the Sierra sounds, let's step into the present. Let's look at the modern-day encounters, because the mystery didn't end in the 1970s. In fact, it's only getting stranger. Meet Russell again. An experienced tracker, retired U.S. Army, an outdoorsman, and longtime Sasquatch researcher. He spent years in the field, chasing shadows most wouldn't dare follow. And this time, his target has led him deep into unfamiliar terrain. But Russell believes he's close. He finds a perfect vantage point overlooking a wide clearing, ideal for observation. With his thermal camera locked in and a parabolic microphone ready to pick up even the faintest sounds, he begins to scan the environment. At first, nothing seems out of the ordinary, just trees, wind, silence. But Russell senses something. He's convinced whatever he's been tracking is playing games with him.
That way. We've got the parabolic set up. I'm going to turn on the thermal. We'll start scanning.
I feel like whatever I've been tracking is sort of toying with me. But at this point, I'm now one step ahead of it because I've set up trail cams, and here...
Still, Russell feels like he has the upper hand. He's planted trail cams throughout the area. His parabolic mic is active. He thinks he has a tactical advantage. But Bigfoot isn't just some oversized animal. It's elusive, intelligent, and, as Russell would soon realize, ahead of him. Then, a sound.
I've been doing this for a lot of years. And so far in Washington, I've heard some strange sounds I've never heard in my life. Hearing or seeing anything? Not seeing anything yet. There's something moving out there.
Through the mic, he hears it. At first, it's faint. Movement. Something shifting in the brush. But when he checks the thermal screen, nothing. No deer, no bear, no hiker. Just that sound. Moments later, something appears. A figure. Vague. Heated. There. Then gone. The creature isn't making the noise recklessly. It's calculated.
Look at that. Hey. I see it. Watch.
Suddenly, a new sound comes through. A distinct knock, but not from wood. It sounds like it was made by mouth, a strange clicking pattern, unnatural and deliberate. Here's what's interesting. Russell heard this exact pattern several days earlier, and now it's back. The analysis team believes it might be a form of communication, a language, short-range signals exchanged between more than one creature. If so, we're not just hearing a sound, we're listening to a conversation.
Are you hearing that? I heard something. Listen. Holy crap.
Then, silence. The clicking stops. The footsteps grow faint. Whatever it was, it's leaving. Russell stares into the darkness, knowing he's just missed it again. But he's not discouraged, because this time, he caught something. And the sounds? They weren't just random. They had purpose. They had rhythm. They had intelligence.
Right out in that direction. I heard it. No, you gotta be kidding me.
Suddenly the clicking stopped, and I can still hear movement down below me. And I don't know how far it is away from me, but at this distance, any variation or movement from that parabolic mic to the left or right.
A man recounts a night he shared with his father, one that would change everything. A night that took him from casual curiosity to devoted researcher. His name is Stacy Brown Jr., and he's from Crawfordville, Florida. What happened to him turned a family moment into a lifelong mission. Stacy grew up in a small rural town where the woods weren't just a backdrop, they were a way of life. His dad had always been into the unexplained, UFOs, Bigfoot, the kind of mysteries that fuel late-night talks and weekend adventures. And as a kid, Stacy followed his father's lead. They'd venture into the forests near their home, searching for signs of Bigfoot, never quite sure if it was real, but always hoping.
My dad was really interested in like UFOs and Bigfoot and all that. I would go into the woods across the street from my house and we would be Bigfoot hunting. And that really kind of started it for me. I guess being from a very rural town, I felt that gave me an advantage versus somebody who's, from the city and they may only get out to the woods possibly 10 days a year. I literally lived in the woods. And so I felt my knowledge of, wildlife and just how the forest works really was going to help me along in my journey.
That foundation set the stage for what would become a pivotal moment years later. It was Tuesday, May 8, 2012, when Stacy got a call from his dad around lunchtime. "Want to go Bigfooting tonight?" he asked. His dad had just sold his boat to buy a thermal camera and was eager to test it out. So they packed up and headed to Torreya State Park, deep in the Florida wilderness.
Tuesday, May 8th, 2012, my dad called me around lunchtime and asked me if I wanted to go Bigfooting that night. He had sold his boat so he could buy a thermal camera, and he wanted to get back into it. So we headed to Torreya State Park. We walked about a mile and a half down to the Rock Creek campsite.
They hiked about a mile and a half to the Rock Creek campsite. As the night grew darker, around 11 or 12, the knocks began. At first, Stacy's dad brushed it off. "It's just the wind," he said. But then it happened again, closer this time. "They're coming in," Stacy warned. A third sound followed, a grunt and a knock. That's when they knew something was out there.
Around 11, 12 o'clock, we started hearing knocks. My dad was super skeptical, so he was like, "Yeah, it's just the wind blowing the branches and stuff like that." And then it happened again, and they were closer. And I was like, "Hey, dude, they're coming in. We need to get ready." He goes, "All right, if it happens again, we'll go out." And then right as he got done saying that, it was like a grunt and a knock. It was like a...
They stepped onto the trail, listening intently. The woods answered with something running, first to the right, then to the left. And then Stacy's dad looked up into the trees. "I see something," he whispered. He thought it was two raccoons fighting, but whatever it was, it moved. It crossed a gap with speed and purpose.
So we're walking down the trail, and we would hear something running on our right, and then we would hear something running on our left, and then Dad looked up at the tree, and he's like, "Oh, I see something." He was convinced it was two raccoons, and they were like fighting or squabbling. But then it takes off and crosses this gap. Now, mind you, I don't see what he's seeing.
The camera cut out. Stacy's dad, an ex-Army Ranger, suddenly panicked. "Get your gun," he said. That was the moment Stacy knew it was real. His father, the man who had always been calm and composed, was scared. And that shook him more than the encounter itself. When they made it back to the truck, his dad showed him the thermal footage. "We found Bigfoot," Stacy said. "You want to leave now?" His dad handed him the camera and said, "You can go back down there. I'll wait here in the truck."
And so that's what made it like 10 times worse for me, you know, because this person my whole life, you know, you've put on this pedestal, you're safe around, and you can see him in a panic. So even though I was like 27 or so at the time, it really still kind of shook me. When we got in the truck and he showed me the footage, I was like...
Neither of them went back. They sent the footage to several researchers, but one reply stood out. Cliff Barackman. He asked to investigate the case, and what he confirmed validated everything they experienced. Stacy's dad didn't believe in Bigfoot. He just wanted to hang out with his son. But they ended up capturing something that would impact the entire Bigfoot community. His father has since passed away. But for Stacy, that night was like winning the Super Bowl with your best friend. No matter what anyone else believes, that footage, that moment, was everything. For them, Bigfoot wasn't a myth anymore. It was real.
He didn't believe these things were real at all. He thought it was cool, but he didn't, you know, think in a million years that we would come across something that ended up being so important. My dad's passed away since then, but it was like winning the Super Bowl with your best friend. Even if nobody else believed it, it was proof to me and my dad.
So we've just heard from Stacy Brown Jr., a man whose experience with his father led to one of the most compelling pieces of Bigfoot thermal footage ever captured. His story isn't just captivating. It's been widely respected among researchers, analysts, and skeptics alike for one major reason: the credibility of the evidence. The footage has stood up to scrutiny. It wasn't faked. It wasn't blurred or conveniently vague. It was clear, structured, and emotionally raw. That moment turned a family outing into something extraordinary. And Stacy's testimony only strengthens the case for what so many have believed for decades. Bigfoot is real. But Stacy's encounter is far from the only one. Thousands of people around the world have reported terrifying encounters, strange vocalizations in the night, distant whooping sounds, knocking, clicking, even full-blown howls echoing through dense forests. And while sightings can be debated, the sounds? They're harder to dismiss.
Let's go.
They leave behind recordings, patterns, and consistency across time and regions. That's why the next part of our investigation dives deeper, not just into the stories, but into the audio, into the raw sounds captured by mics in remote woods. Because if we truly want to understand what's out there, we have to listen carefully. Let's move on. Some forests speak in whispers, others in silence. But somewhere in the dense backwoods of southern Ontario, the trees hold their breath. Not because of the wind, but because of something watching. And when one man returned to familiar trails in 2023, he found a presence still lingering, hidden not by shadows, but by stillness. This is the ongoing journey of one of Ontario's longest-standing Sasquatch trackers, a record that began in 1996 when early sightings set a lifelong pursuit into motion. Known across the community for raw, unpolished encounters and boots-on-the-ground honesty.
When I first watched it, I was like, oh, ow, that's got to be a person watching me. And no, it's not a person. It doesn't have eyebrows or anything like that.
His name is whispered in forums and called out in comment sections. But here, he needs no introduction, because here, the forest already knows him. On a calm morning in late spring 2023, he returned to one of his usual haunts. The leaves had come in thick. Growth had swallowed the forest floor whole. From the outside, it looked quiet, uneventful, but the forest has a way of pretending. With a camera in hand, he recorded his walk, as he often does, narrating softly, observing subtle signs, nothing out of the ordinary. Yet days later, his audience saw what he did not.
I'm kind of thinking I was a little further up here. I watched the video and I was like, I know where that is. I'm not sure if this is the spot. Just take my word for it. It is right in here. I was somewhere within 10 feet of this spot when I recorded that.
Watch yourself. Behind a veil of green, something seems to shift. A shadowed face, too symmetrical to be pareidolia, lingers just beyond the leafy curtain. It doesn't move, it doesn't blink, but it watches. Viewers flooded the comments with timestamps, pausing and zooming, drawing outlines around what could only be described as a figure.
It's definitely looking right at me. It has reddish colored hair, beige face. You can see his you can see his eyelids, you can see his eyes.
Tall, upright, and unmistakably humanoid. Not a trick of light, not a swaying branch, something with intention. He returned to the spot, retracing every step. Where he had walked, where he had stood, and where the watcher had been. The foliage was dense. Low-lying undergrowth created a natural screen, difficult to see into, impossible to see out of. And when he found it, the spot, it became clear. Whoever or whatever had been watching stood nearly 2 feet below his elevation. Yet, in the video, its gaze met his. Level and unwavering. That meant only one thing.
Okay, anyway, I'm going to include that video that I was sent by a viewer. And you can just kind of make your own mind up. I think it's pretty persuasive footage.
Observe carefully. The camera's angle aligns perfectly with where the figure's face had been, which means it was tall. Much taller than the average person. And it never made a sound. There were no broken branches, no smell, no prints, no sounds of movement after the fact. That's what makes it stranger, because those who know these forests best know that silence is not the absence of life. It is the presence of something cautious, something that's been watching humans far longer than we've watched it. Despite a season with little overt activity, fewer wood knocks, no recorded howls, and minimal sign, something had still been there. It waited. It timed its appearance so precisely it was almost invisible. Almost. That is the paradox of the Sasquatch. When you're looking, it's not there. When you're unaware, it watches. And in the quiet footage of an ordinary day, its face now stares out from the shadows, frozen in one frame that feels too real to ignore.
It gives me a kind of an uneasy feeling when I see how close I have been to something and not seeing it, and it's obviously watching me.
Witness the moment. He steps into the area where the figure once stood. The foliage parts slightly as he passes through. From that point of view, the terrain explains the concealment. The ground dips just enough to hide something 8 feet tall, unless you were looking for it. If you've ever felt the woods go quiet too quickly, if you've ever sensed eyes where no eyes should be, you may have been watched too. What do you think that face behind the leaves really was? Could it have been a curious animal or something else altogether? Leave your thoughts in the comments, and if you've seen something similar in your footage, don't ignore it. Sometimes the most honest encounters are the ones you didn't mean to capture. And if you haven't subscribed yet, follow the search. Because in these forests, the watchers are real, and they don't always wait to be seen.
Yeah, I was already out here once and filmed at the bottom of the ravine thinking that's where it was. So I didn't watch the video. I was like, oh, I know exactly where to look. Gotta get moving. There's a lot of bugs. So check out the video, see what you think. Leave a message, and we'll take it from there.
Frank, a longtime camper in Sequoia National Park, had his first shocking experience with a gorilla-looking thing back in 1992 as a second grader, hiding from his cousin. He saw a large ape-like figure about 30 feet away, froze, then ran away screaming. However, his older cousin did not believe him. Years later, in 2002, while camping at Princess Campsite during a year of fire bans, he and his cousin Tony decided to set up a 2-person tent 100 feet from their main campsite, on the end of the deep forest. They heard the sound of branches breaking in the woods that night, but ignored it as other campers gathering firewood. Around 2 a.m., 2 hours after they had gone to sleep, Frank was woken up by the noise of 2 giant vibrating footsteps.
And that's when it all happened. 2 hours later, I was awakened by 2 giant vibrating footsteps. There were several steps I heard coming closer and closer. The way I described it, it was like Jurassic Park when you see the cup rippling. I felt that on my back. I slowly turned to my cousin and shook him awake and covered his mouth without making a noise. As soon as I woke him, it's like right away, he felt that vibration to the walking.
The ground beneath him shook, a sensation he likened to the iconic Jurassic Park scene. He slowly shook Tony to wake him up, covering his mouth to stop him from making any sound. Tony immediately felt the same disturbing vibrations. Frank knew instantly this was not a bear. The creature was huge, its steps shaking the ground like it was an elephant walking. It seemed to be checking if anyone was awake, waiting for a sound. They kept silent. Or maybe it was the shock that had drained all their nerves as they covered each other's mouths. Then, the unimaginable happened. 20 seconds later, Frank felt a blunt, round, warm object touch his foot, which was pressed against the tent wall.
20 seconds later, I felt a blunt, round, warm thing touching my foot. That was against the tent wall. I remember it was a small 2-person tent. I felt it go from the bottom of my foot and slowly upward. If it was a bear's nose, I think I would feel it breathing, or a side-to-side movement on my foot like a dog, but no. It touched my foot and went slowly up my foot until I couldn't handle the fear.
It moved slowly from the bottom of his foot to the rest of his body. He urgently ripped his foot back. In response, a low grunt, deep and guttural, sounded from outside the tent, like a huge, heavy creature rising from a sleep. He knew then that whatever it was, it could easily take down their tents. They heard it walk away, the vibration still present, but the sound of his step getting far. The next morning, fear stopped them from looking for tracks, but the memory of those vibrating footsteps and the touch on his foot did not go away that easy. Years later, after watching countless Bigfoot documentaries, Frank finally realized what he had encountered: a Sasquatch. He finally felt relief sharing his story from Sequoia Canyon, near the giant redwoods at Stony Creek and Princess campsites.
Then we heard it walk away from the tent, but not as loud as when it came up to the tent. Still felt the vibration, but could not hear the stomping like when it woke us up. The next morning, I didn't think to look for tracks or anything because I thought it was a bear, but something in the back of my head says no. I will never forget the footsteps coming towards me. Boom, 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 boom. Only watching your videos and show and documentary, I know that it was a Bigfoot I saw.
He also noted what appeared to be a fist engraved in a log nearby, and strangely bent trees, reinforcing his belief that these creatures were indeed up there, watching. He didn't go out there expecting this. Deep in the wilderness, surrounded by thick moss and towering trees, something unexpected crossed his path. From the Mountain Beast Mysteries channel, this was supposed to be just another expedition. But what he found out there, it changed everything. It all started with a footprint, a clear, bare, human-like footprint, right there in the moss. You could see it, the heel, the narrowing shape, the toes spread out just enough. It wasn't a perfect print, but it was enough to freeze him in place. It didn't look like a bear. It didn't look like anything he could easily explain. And if it really was Bigfoot, this would be his first track ever. See for yourself.
It looks like toes. I mean, if this is from a Bigfoot, it's the first track I've ever found. And it's a shame it's in the moss because it'd be nice to try and cast one.
The print sits right in the moss, deep enough to hold its shape. It looks like something walked barefoot through that area. The toes, the heel, the length, all there. It's hard to cast a print in moss, but there's no doubt it's an impression. This wasn't just a random dent. It's wide, long, and real. But it didn't stop there. Not long after, he spotted something strange. A heavy branch wedged between tree limbs, high off the ground. It wasn't something that fell naturally. The nearby trees didn't match the type of branch. It was out of place, almost like something had intentionally put it there. Maybe a marker, maybe a sign. Or maybe it was just the first clue that he wasn't alone. As night fell, the feeling of being watched only grew stronger. He stayed near camp, setting up trail cameras, ready for anything. But when it got dark, things got serious.
When all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we were all startled to hear a loud crack and what sounded like a small tree falling over very close to our camp area, but just out of sight and a little ways into the trees. This set the tone for the rest of the expedition. We immediately grabbed the cameras and wandered off into the darkness in search of whatever caused this disturbance. Lesson learned? Always have your cameras rolling.
A loud crack, a small tree snapping nearby. It wasn't far. It was loud enough to make everyone stop. They scrambled to grab cameras, heading into the trees to figure out what caused the sound. They didn't see anything, but that sound, that crack, set the tone for the night. From then on, every step felt like something was watching. Later, while walking back to their vehicle, they found something no one expected. Take a look at this.
Yeah, we were walking up to the car here. I was just about to get some more stuff before we head out, and we noticed a few of these kind of strange-looking handprints, like up to my hand. You can see what would be the palm, or what looks like the palm, is a little bit lower. So it almost looks as though something maybe put a hand on here and then peered in.
2 strange handprints on the vehicle's side window. They weren't there when they arrived. They weren't from the crew. The handprints didn't line up with where anyone would naturally place their hands. The palms pressed lower, the fingers spread wide, and the print size was unusual. What stood out most, clear dermal ridges. That's a primate trait, not something you see from random animal marks. The group had no explanation. Could a juvenile Bigfoot have walked through their camp, peering into their vehicle? Or was it someone else? The prints didn't smear like you'd expect from rushed movement. They were deliberate, like something paused there. But the most convincing evidence came near the end of their trip. Another footprint appeared, even larger than the first. It was wide. The toes were fully splayed, and the pressure was real. Watch this clip closely.
Right here, we have another potential track. And I could just be imagining it, but what I kind of am visualizing is it coming to here and going around here. And it would be like the left foot coming. These would be where the toes are here.
A massive track pressed into the forest floor. Around 12.5 inches, the toes spread naturally, just like prints seen in other Sasquatch cases. The midsection was broad. The steps seemed natural, not staged or accidental. This wasn't the only track. Another impression nearby showed movement. Something big had been there, moving through that space. Throughout the trip, signs piled up. Strange sounds, tree markers, handprints, and those striking footprints. It wasn't a blurry shape or faraway noise. It was physical. It was close. It's the kind of evidence that makes you think. Could it really be Bigfoot? Was something out there watching them, moving through their camp when no one was looking? What do you think left those prints? Could Bigfoot have been right there all along? Not all Sasquatch sightings involve towering, shadowy figures moving through the forest. Sometimes, what you see is small, almost cute. But don't let the size fool you, it's just as chilling. The sighting in this case didn't happen in the dead of night. It wasn't blurred by fog or hidden by trees. This took place in broad daylight, witnessed clearly by someone standing in the perfect spot for an unforgettable encounter.
Never forget the way that it dropped. It dropped in a vertical position with 2 feet towards the ground and 2 arms stretched up towards the sky.
And its arms, when it
Its
got to the
arms
ground,
were
went down.
straight up. Its arms went down as soon as it hit the ground, and it booked right into that.
The witness recalls the moment with crystal clarity. As the ball dropped in a vertical position with 2 feet toward the ground and 2 arms stretched up toward the sky. As soon as it hit the ground, the arms came down, and the creature rushed off into the brush. One clean, flowy movement, like it had done it 100 times before. The witness is sure that it was something out of the ordinary. Whatever this thing was, it wasn't human, and it wasn't an ordinary animal. Sasquatch researchers know that juveniles, if they exist, are more likely to climb trees for better visibility. As Bobo mentions, Bigfoots do that, especially the young ones, as it seems to give them better visibility.
There's no possible way it could have been anything else.
Brooks described seeing a small one jumping out of a tree. Well, Bigfoots will do that, especially young ones. Gives them better visibility, especially if they're following animals like deer.
So, Brooks, you said when it dropped out of the tree, was it 3.5, 4 foot tall?
This sighting fits that exact behavior pattern. The witness describes the creature as roughly 3.5 to 4 feet tall. Cliff steps in for a size comparison while taking the witness's description.
You said that it landed about 2 feet from the tree, right?
Yeah.
So arms straight ahead, just drop and then turn right away and run.
One fluid movement.
Did it go through all this stuff?
Yeah.
As he indicates that this thing would be the size of a 4-year-old child. a very hairy and very fast 4-year-old. So what was a baby Sasquatch doing high up in a tree in the middle of the day?
Is why would a baby Sasquatch be up there, especially in the middle of the day, right? But this tree is really perfectly positioned to observe that large field right there.
Soon, the team discusses the layout of the ground. The tree sits perfectly at the edge of a wide field, with a great viewpoint. The young Sasquatch could have been scanning the area for prey, maybe even tracking deer. That would explain why it jumped with such precision, rushed immediately, and disappeared with ease through dense brush. There are certainly little nooks and crannies it could have escaped through. Cliff notes.
You just saw a little tiny one.
Yeah.
Adorable.
Yeah. Not many people get to see young ones, especially in broad daylight like that. You're very fortunate.
But I think we're left with no other option here. You saw it run off on 2 legs and it looked like an ape. There's only one suspect with that description. It's a Sasquatch.
That's right.
Well, looks like you guys got more than you bargained for when you moved in here as far as neighbors go, because it looks like you got a Bigfoot kind of living right there.
Yeah.
And once it hit the ground, it ran upright on 2 legs. That single detail eliminates nearly every known North American animal. In the end, there's only one reasonable conclusion, that it was nothing but a Sasquatch. "You just saw a little tiny one," Bobo says with a grin. "Adorable." But there's a knowing tone behind his words that points to the possibility of something big being nearby, putting stress on the fact that there might be a Bigfoot family living nearby. Small, fast, and spotted in daylight, this wasn't just another blurry tale. It's a rare daylight glimpse into the life of a creature many still call a myth. But this baby Squatch might just be the real deal. If a creature like Bigfoot exists, and it's as elusive as witnesses claim, then perhaps one of the best chances we have of detecting it isn't through sight, but through sound. Over the years, researchers have collected a remarkable range of audio recordings that defy easy explanation. These aren't distant echoes or wildlife calls misheard in the dark. These are clear, unsettling vocalizations recorded in remote wilderness areas, some of which have been analyzed by linguists, sound engineers, and skeptics alike, and still leave more questions than answers. Among the most famous are the Sierra Sounds, recorded in the 1970s by Ron Moorhead and Al Berry deep in the Sierra Nevada mountains. Armed with a microphone and a cassette recorder, the men were hoping for proof of movement. What they captured instead were bizarre, guttural voices, sometimes aggressive, sometimes conversational. The pitch variations, intensity, and speed were unlike anything native to the area, and far beyond what a human could fake without specialized equipment. Despite online jokes and casual claims that "my dog sounds like that," or "my teenage son hoots like that all the time," serious analysts have taken a different view. Scott Nelson, a retired U.S. Navy cryptologic linguist, reviewed the Sierra Sounds and offered a chilling conclusion. The language elements in the Sierra Sounds appear to follow linguistic patterns, not random animal noise. He wasn't just guessing. Nelson, trained in identifying structured communication, believed the recordings captured a real language, spoken by something non-human. And the Sierra Sounds are just the beginning.
I played it over again. And over, and my son said, "Dad, what are you doing? What's wrong with you?" I said, "Son, there's a language here, and that is not a human being."
There's also the Ohio Howl, a now iconic recording made by an anonymous witness deep in the rural Midwest. Captured from what must have been hundreds of yards away, the howl is so loud, so haunting, that it triggers distant dogs to start barking in the background. The sound rises and falls like a siren, but sirens don't echo from the center of uninhabited forest. The howl builds, sustains, then drops back into silence, and listeners are left with chills. Researchers and independent explorers have since collected hundreds of vocal samples, including whoops, howls, growls, rapid chatter, and what sounds eerily like whispered dialogue. The patterns are consistent. The tone is always too low, too wide-ranging, or too fast for the average human vocal range. And they tend to come from regions with a history of Bigfoot sightings. If it's not a person, and not a known animal, then the question becomes much harder to dismiss. In many of these recordings, it's not just the sound that alarms researchers, it's the response. Nearby animals, dogs, elk, even coyotes, go silent, flee, or begin vocalizing as if they've heard something foreign, as if something larger than them has entered their territory. For skeptics, audio has often been dismissed as inconclusive. But for those who've spent time analyzing the frequencies, measuring the decibels, and comparing the patterns, this vocal evidence stands as one of the most compelling categories of Bigfoot research. Because it's hard to hoax something you can't see, and harder still to fake something that speaks back. Tracking Bigfoot is less about constant encounters and more about patience, which can be spanned over years. Trevor, host of Mountain Beast Mysteries, has been at it since 2013, lurking through the Canadian wilderness with a camera in hand. In this episode, he takes us on a reflective journey through the handful of tracks he's found in nearly a decade of exploring. He seems embarrassed as he shows how little he has found, but the few signs he has found, they make you question what you think you know. Trevor comes across a 12-13-inch track in the moss, which seems to be his first potential Sasquatch print.
If this is from a Bigfoot, it's the first track I've ever found. And it's a shame it's in the moss because it'd be nice to try and cast one. But it is definitely an impression.
It's unmistakably shaped like a foot, complete with a heel and slight toe impressions. He puts his sunglasses next to it to measure, and even with such a simple object, the size is quite impressive. But it's also exhausting. Soft forest floors and a lack of plaster make casting impossible on many of his explorations.
Put my glasses there for perspective. There's the end of the heel. I'd say it's double the length of the width of my glasses. Mm-hmm.
Eventually, he finds something far stranger. They are tracks in snow, spaced about 3.5 feet apart. He seems shocked, as nobody walks like that, as he notices how far the stride stretches. The snow along a fence line is rubbed off, as if something had passed through recently. These weren't slow animal tracks or signs of a deer. The spacing is bipedal, moving from left, right, and left, straight path. That's not wildlife behavior. That's something walking almost like a human, but not. He wonders aloud, could it be the same creature I put apples out for? The same one I heard knocking? It's a creepy idea. Not just evidence, but interaction.
Nobody walks like that. And this is way further.
Yeah, and then it goes down towards the fence, and that's where I put the apples up over there.
I wonder if this track or because it goes in that direction is part of that one.
However, it all becomes more intriguing as a large trail imprint is seen, which is about 2.5 times the length of a handheld camera. There's no sign of toes, and the front is rounded. Could it be a person who slipped and dragged their foot? Possibly, but the size and shape stand out, and Trevor highlights a raised ridge across the middle, which is a feature known in Sasquatch lore as the mid-tarsal break. It's a classic Bigfoot trait. Yet even the skeptic, he doesn't jump to conclusions. What stands out most in Trevor's journey isn't the number of tracks. It is his dedication to sticking to the truth. He's not here to hype every foot-shaped dent in the mud. He's documenting everything, from the plausible to the mundane, with honesty. In the Bigfoot world, that matters, because sometimes all it takes is one good print to change everything.
Hey guys, Big Daddy Hoffman, 1911. I'm up in the deer stand. It's December. I'm ready to do some deer hunting.
There's something weird about still woods in winter. The silence feels much heavier, as if it's weighing in on you, waiting for something to break it. For Big Daddy Hoffman, 1911, a seasoned hunter filming his time in the deer stand during a December morning in North Carolina's Piedmont region, that silence was broken by something he never expected. He starts the video casually, quietly announcing he's up in the stand, scanning the woods, rifle at the ready, the way he's likely done dozens of times before. There's a stillness to his voice, a calm routine. This is a man who knows the forest, knows the sounds, knows the rhythm of nature. But then, something shifts.
Doesn't look like a deer. I can't tell what it is.
He notices movement in the trees. At first it seems innocent movement of maybe a deer, the kind of movement any hunter is trained to spot. But he hesitates. That uncertainty is quickly swallowed by a sense of unease as the camera rolls on and he catches another glimpse of something tall and dark. It does not look like a deer at all.
What in the world is that thing?
A blood-curdling scream destroys the silence as it blasts through the forest. It's not the sound of a man. It's not the cry of a deer or the growl of a bear. It's something entirely unfamiliar, raw, and powerful. And you can hear it in his voice that this surely isn't acting. He's shaken. His tone rose with disbelief and actual fear. We see the camera becoming unsteady. There's no curiosity, no attempt to investigate, only pure panic. That's not just a man startled by a strange animal. That's someone who just felt their place in the forest shrink in the presence of something beyond explanation. Whether you believe in Bigfoot or not, the audio in this footage is shocking. It's not just the sound, but the instinctive physical response it evokes. You can feel the drop in temperature when that scream hits, like the woods themselves just grew older and darker. What's especially interesting is that this isn't some cryptid channel trying to go viral. This is a firearms-focused outdoorsman, clearly suspicious, just trying to enjoy a morning hunt. He even says in the description, "That's my story and I'm sticking to it," half joking but also throwing it to the critics that it really happened. Whether it was a Sasquatch, an unknown predator, or something else entirely, one thing's certain. It was enough to send a seasoned hunter fleeing from his spot. And sometimes, that's all the proof you need. This video begins like any other of Desert Sasquatches with a serene and reflective start. But it doesn't stay that way. As he comes closer to the old hunting cabin, he feels something does not sit right. He hears movement inside. Not just any movement on the floors, not any movement caused by the wind. Something's moving, and no one else lives out there. The place is supposed to be closed down. But then he finds tracks, new ones, fresh ones. And the scariest part was that there were no tracks indicating the exit of the creature. Just a few gummy worms left behind, either a bait or something forgotten behind. There's a footprint partially on a log, and that was it. As if something had been standing there, sneakily looking into the window. Suddenly he finds what he believes are Sasquatch prints that are wide, deep, and spaced far apart. He compares them to his own by stomping next to them, but they are not a match. His boot barely leaves a dent. Whatever made these had weight, and it left in a hurry.
Here. Hard stepping. Hard stepping. Look at the difference in that track than my foot. And then there's nothing, just my tracks. It's like it ran. It took off running from there. Like it was standing on these boards looking in that window.
And then the strange structures begin appearing. A little while later, he finds something or someone looking. It's shadowy and still, and he hears sounds. Nicks, rustling, chest beating. This isn't a lone hiker or some hunter. This feels like someone or something was observing him.
Something's making calls. I can see a form over there.
The forest grows weirder by the minute. We see him stumble across a bone lodged in a tree. How does a bone get there? It's not the only one either. There are piles of bones, scattered, as if something had been feeding, stashing, or warning. Another weird thing is seen as there are hair-filled structures, sticks bent and stacked like a hut, with fur matted into the walls. It appears like a nest. Something had been there recently. Back at the cabin, something had scratched at the walls. Not the innocent claw marks of a raccoon or a curious bear. These were violent, intentional.
And they've been scratching. I don't know why they'd be scratching. Something's scratching on the cabin. It's not like a little scratch, like a mouse or a squirrel or a cat or anything. Or even a mountain lion. It's loud.
As though trying to get in or sending a warning. Desert Sasquatch reflects on the stench he's smelled in the past. The scent others claim comes from Sasquatch, which is rotting meat and unwashed fur. He smelled it, but is it from glands like other animals? Or just the natural odor of something wild and living outside human civilization? The deeper he goes, he seems to find more questions than answers. Bones, prints, noises, movement. Something is watching. Something is still out there. As he finishes the hike, he whispers, "I just don't go anywhere without my gun anymore. I just don't risk it." When the forest gives you signs this clear, you clear out real fast, 'cause you never know what the forest is hiding. Belongs to the forest itself.
Kind of sounded like singing. It was like 3 notes that kept going over and over. And at the time, I wasn't sure exactly where the sound was coming from. It wasn't really close. But it was similar to what I recorded out here a few years ago.
Could it be communication? A call? Or maybe even a signal that the watchers of the woods are still near, even if their prints aren't? As Barb and Gabby stood quietly in the snow, camera in hand, a sudden shuffling sound caught their attention. Snow tumbled from limbs, and sound 3-4 heavy footsteps crunched through the trees. Then, a flicker of black movement between 2 trunks. Barb saw it. Gabby saw it.
Something black moved between a couple of trees back in there. You really can't see anything in this picture. We can see a lot farther back into the trees. You can see Gabby, she's watching pretty intently.
Both locked eyes on the same spot, but just like that, it was gone. Too fast, too subtle. And the camera? Too late. But sometimes you don't need footage to know what you saw. Thank you for stepping into the snow with us, for listening to the knocks, the sounds, and the silence. If you've seen something strange, tracks that don't make sense, sounds and shadows that move on their own, share it. Together, we're piecing together the unknown, one print at a time. Until next time, see you in the trees. If Sasquatch is a hoax, then it's the most persistent, anatomically accurate, and geographically inexplicable hoax in modern history. To date, thousands of footprint casts have been collected across North America and beyond. Many of them in extremely remote wilderness, where the odds of discovery are so low, it would make no sense for a prankster to go through the trouble. And yet people do find them. So what makes these footprints so convincing? It starts with repeated anatomical features, patterns not seen in human tracks, but found consistently in primate anatomy. One of the most significant indicators is the mid-tarsal break, a flexible joint in the middle of the foot common in great apes like gorillas and chimpanzees, but absent in modern humans. While our feet have an arched structure, these tracks suggest a flat, hinge-like flexibility that allows the foot to adapt to rough terrain. Some of the most compelling casts show human-like footprints, but at inhuman proportions. Prints measuring up to 18 inches long, showing dynamic toe movement, deep pressure ridges, and even asymmetrical steps, details that point to living, flexible feet, not hard molds. Dr. Jeff Meldrum, a physical anthropologist and expert on primate locomotion, has spent years analyzing these tracks. His research points to traits that suggest weight shifting, terrain adaptation, and biological structure, including how the toes grip more firmly on sloped or slippery surfaces, but relax on flat ground. These are movements no wooden or rubber hoax foot could replicate. Some casts go further, showing dermal ridges, the fine skin lines found on fingers and the soles of our feet. These ridges are also present in gorillas, chimpanzees, and, apparently, in Sasquatch. They're incredibly difficult to fake. Police fingerprint expert Jimmy Chilcutt reviewed several casts and said, "If someone faked these, they should be forging money instead. These aren't just broad shapes carved into foam. They show wear, weight distribution, and even injury." In some rare cases, researchers have tracked specific foot injuries, a warped heel, a toe deformation, only to find matching prints years later in the same region, showing the injury's progression and healing through natural callousing. A hoaxer would need not just deep anatomical knowledge, but foresight and access over years to pull that off. Dr. Grover Krantz, another renowned anthropologist, was blunt in his analysis. "You can't fake pressure ridges." He was referring to the subtle compression patterns in the soil, signs that a real, soft, living foot pressed down, shifted weight, and moved forward with force. Of course, there are fakes out there, some of them laughable. Photos exist of crude wooden Sasquatch feet being held up proudly. But those obvious forgeries do not explain the best evidence collected under controlled circumstances by trained scientists in untouched wilderness. And this isn't just a North American phenomenon. In 1951, mountaineer Eric Shipton was scaling the Himalayas when he stumbled across a line of 13-inch humanoid tracks at over 19,000 feet above sea level. The photos made headlines around the world. The prints were deeply embedded in the snow, clearly fresh, and showed a broad foot with an offset big toe, a trait found in some non-human primates. Shipton was baffled. "Nobody goes up to 19,000 feet just to make a joke," he said. And he was right. These weren't just oddities. They were structured, deliberate, biological footprints, appearing in terrain so inhospitable that faking them would be both impractical and senseless. This type of footprint evidence, when evaluated seriously, builds a consistent picture, not just of something big, but of something real, something adapted to survive, to move silently across rugged terrain, and to leave behind traces, even if only for those paying close enough attention. Tucked away deep in the snow-capped Dry Fork wilderness, an exploration team returns to Red Cloud 6 weeks after discovering what might be one of the most interesting pieces of Bigfoot evidence in recent years. It wasn't just the quiet isolation or the eerie stillness of the mountains that brought them back. It was what the snow had tried to keep hidden.
Folks, this is where 6 weeks ago we found there was a bunch of snow right here. There was actually 3 feet of snow that went over this little campfire with trash in it. We couldn't even see that there was a campfire here. It was about 3 feet of snow. It's melted back to this much now, but there was a bipedal trackway through the middle of it, and on either side of the trackway was
On their previous visit, they came upon a campfire covered in nearly 3 feet of snow. But what caught their attention were a set of large bipedal tracks imprinted through the snow. Even more chilling, on either side of the trackway were deep bedding impressions, suggesting something huge had laid there. Now, as the snow melts away,
They're old.
Way old.
But they're big.
Yeah.
Look at this one. I mean, compared to my foot. It stepped up here.
Went right through here, and I tried seeing if I could actually find.
they've returned to retrieve game cameras and follow any remaining clues. As they comb through the partially thawed ground, one of the team members spots what seems to be more impressions, melted but enormous and abnormally deep.
It'd be nice if it stepped in some mud like this.
Yeah, that'd be great.
It would make such a great
I went
impression.
all the way up and around this up here, looking. It definitely sounded pretty big, actually. Look at those.
Measuring the stride from footprint to footprint suggests something astonishing. A 6-foot step, straight through the slush and snow. "That's not elk," one of them mutters, noting the bipedal pattern. Then they see it, what looks like the spot where the creature laid down again, right in the snow.
Yeah, where does it start? Where does it end?
Where does it start? Where does it end? I mean, if you go center to center, you're...
Center to center is close to 6 foot, 69 inches.
Center to center. And it's something laid down over there. Let's go check that out. I'd really... And I'm up to my knee. I'm up to my knee, and it's got a 6-foot stride.
And that's when they find the hair. Long hair strands, reddish-brown and multicolored, scattered across where the creature was lying, some even embedded deep in the snow. One sample appears unlike anything they have seen before, different in texture and color, distinctly hair, not fur. Then comes the final chilling detail: blood, faint but unmistakable, in the snow beside the hair.
There's blood right in the snow by this hair.
Yeah, there is.
Look how long those strands are.
Yeah,
I mean, that's not fur.
Where's that bag?
I mean, look, it's deep in the snow. Something, you know, you would have to have a very warm...
all over around the edges.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my...
It's everywhere.
Look at all this hair inside where something laid down in the snow. You know, you have to have a pretty warm coat.
The team, experienced in wildlife tracking, knows what elk hair looks like. They've seen bears, mountain lions, bobcats, but this was something else. A few chuckle nervously, joking about the hair, but the atmosphere is charged with tension, because as they gather hair samples into a baggie, there's no longer a question of whether something was there.
They get it from inside the shaft, inside the medulla. So even though we touched it with human hands, they can still cleanse the hair of our DNA before they break it open.
The real question becomes, what? It's the perfect stack of physical evidence, tracks, lying area, hair, blood, all discovered in a known Bigfoot hotspot. And yet, there's a strange awareness that even with these findings, the world may never fully trust what they saw. But the cameras are still rolling, the snow is still melting, and whatever passed through Red Cloud just might still be watching. So the next question skeptics love to ask is, if these sounds are so real, why don't researchers go out into the field and actually play them? Test them? Well, they have. Many times, and with surprising results. In this next segment, a team of seasoned field investigators is on a mission, not just to catch sight of Bigfoot, but to provoke some kind of audible response. A howl, a knock, a vocalization. Anything that proves something else is out there, listening. Dr. Mireya Mayer and Ronnie LeBlanc head to the eastern edge of a clearing deep in the woods. With them is a high-powered speaker system loaded with previously recorded Bigfoot howls, calls that Mireya has used in the past with remarkable success. Ronnie knows time is running short. The expedition has been dragging on, and results have been elusive. "We need to try something new," he says. Early on, Mireya got a response using this same speaker system. I've got an idea to build on that.
We're at the stage now where we're running out of time, so I think we need to try something new. Early on in this expedition, Maria was able to get a response using the speaker system. Well, I got a plan to add to that, and maybe we can ambush a Bigfoot. I have an idea if you're cool with it. I feel like you've been here the longest. They've probably been watching you since you got here.
And here's where it gets interesting. Ronnie suggests they split up, strategically. You've been here the longest, he tells Mireya. If they're watching anyone, it's you. Plus, there's a long-standing history in Native American lore about female hunters being followed, or even kidnapped, by these beings. I think it's time we use that. The plan? Mireya sets up the speaker system alone in the middle of the clearing while Ronnie monitors from a distance. If Bigfoot is nearby and listening, they're hoping to get a reaction, a movement, a sound, maybe even an appearance. It's a bold move, but in the world of Bigfoot investigation, sometimes bold is the only way forward. Let's see what happens when they press play.
And they're familiar with you. Plus, there's a lot of stories with the Native Americans that women have been kidnapped or been, sought after. So I think it's a good idea if we...
With the plan set, Dr. Mireya Mayer prepares to walk into the clearing alone. Ronnie will remain at a vantage point nearby, thermal camera in hand, scanning the tree line for any sign of movement. If something is out there, watching, now would be the time to show itself. I'll have the thermal going, Mireya says, trying to steady her nerves. I'll scan and see if we can get anything to come out of the wood line. She hesitates for a moment. It kind of feels like I'm the bait, she adds with a half smile, but I'm cool with it.
The vantage point, I can let you know if I hear something and maybe you can check that out.
Yep, I'll have the thermal going and just kind of scanning and see if we can get anything to come out of the wood line. If you're cool with it.
It feels a little bit like I'm bait, but I'm cool with it.
Okay, cool.
So let's go find that vantage point.
It's not just about the speaker system anymore. There's a deeper layer here, psychological, maybe even primal. Mireya has been in this forest longer than anyone else on the team. And in the wild, familiarity matters. She's seen it with apes and gorillas. The more time you spend in their space, the more they learn to tolerate your presence, or take interest in it. I can't shake the feeling that I'm being used as bait because I'm a woman, Mireya says bluntly. There are stories, ancient ones, Native American legends, of Bigfoot being drawn to women, sometimes even kidnapping them.
There could be some credence to the fact that I've been here longer, and so a Bigfoot would be more accustomed to me. I've certainly seen this in the wild with apes. The longer that you're around, the more accepting they are of your presence. But I can't escape the feeling that actually I'm being used as bait because I'm a woman. Ronnie mentioned stories of Bigfoots being more interested in women, sometimes even kidnapping them.
Ronnie believes it too. Sasquatch has probably been watching her from the start, he says. She's familiar now. That could be what draws them in. So under the cloak of night, Mireya steps into the open. She's armed with a speaker, a thermal camera, and a growing sense that something is watching. The question is, will it finally show itself?
Sasquatch has been probably watching her from the get-go, so she's familiar to them. And so having her out in the field like this, I think is a great idea, hopefully to draw them out.
Back at the command center, Bryce is locked into the new surveillance feed, eyes scanning the northwest section of the clearing via a state-of-the-art camera system. This thing is amazing, he says, watching the real-time thermal and visual outputs. The team's prepping for night operations, so not much activity yet, but I'm keeping a close eye.
The new surveillance camera system.
This thing is amazing. I think the team must be getting ready for their night investigation, so there's not much to report, but...
Meanwhile, at the eastern edge of the clearing, Dr. Mireya Mayer and Ronnie LeBlanc have settled into position.
Maria and Ronnie are now in position at the eastern edge of the clearing. At the opposite end, Russell has also chosen his spot for tonight's stakeout.
Across the expanse, Russell is staking out the opposite end. His gear is dialed in. The thermal scope is up and calibrated. Visibility is low due to fog, but Russell knows exactly what he's doing. "There we go," he mutters, adjusting the scope. "As I scan left to right, it'll pick up anything throwing a heat trace. Doesn't matter if there's fog. This tech cuts right through it. I can see close to 1,000 yards out. If anything warm-blooded moves out there, we'll know."
It's going to tell me if there's something out there putting out a heat trace. See how clear that is? There's a lot of fog in this clearing.
The trap is set. The team holds their positions. And now, they wait. At Maria's cue, the eerie call is played through the high-powered speaker. The forest responds with nothing. Dead silence. No rustling leaves. No bird chatter. Even the frogs pause. The tension builds in the stillness. Mariah plays the howl again. The same heavy, ominous quiet hangs in the air. "This is part of Bigfooting," Ronnie whispers. "It's a game of patience. If you break early, if you get distracted, you miss your moment. And then, movement."
The forest actually just went silent.
Bigfooting is a game of patience. If you don't put in the time.
Mireya hears it first. A rustle, a distant shift, something just outside their field of view. Ronnie scans quickly, then freezes. A thermal hit. A clear, distinct heat signature appears on the screen. Something is there. Watching, moving. But before they can lock it in, it's gone. "It vanished into the brush," Ronnie says, wide-eyed. But it was there, no question. They decided to regroup under the cover of night. The plan had almost worked. Something was drawn to the call, something intelligent enough to watch, but careful enough to stay hidden. Now the team knows this strategy has potential, and whatever's out there, it's listening.
Ronnie to Maria.
Hey, Ronnie, I hear you.
To your right.
Just as Mireya stepped away from her position and Ronnie agreed to regroup, Russell, still locked into his thermal scope, caught something. A large figure appeared on his screen, radiating a strong heat signature. It wasn't small, and it wasn't standing still. This thing was moving, deliberately, powerfully, just along the edge of the clearing. While the others repositioned, Russell held steady, his experience guiding him. He didn't chase, he didn't speak. He watched, patiently. Because in Bigfooting, patience often pays off. And in that moment, Russell knew, whatever it was, it had finally stepped into view. The hunt wasn't over. It was just beginning.